The room is unmuted.
Can you all turn your microphones on, please? Thank you.
All right. Guess we'll get this started. Welcome. All right. Welcome to our City Council regular meeting. It is May 12th. We are live at the Mill and also streaming live to our YouTube channel. We're going to call this meeting to order. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. That'd be great.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Clerk Chellen, can we please get a roll call?
Councilmember Araya.
Here.
Councilmember McManus.
Present.
Councilmember Donahue contacted me earlier today. He should be joining us virtually, and then he's going to come in person for the executive session tonight, but I don't see him quite yet. So, Councilmember Shipman,
Present.
Councilmember Jorstad,
Present.
Councilmember Edwards,
Present.
Councilmember Packard.
Present.
Clerk Chellen, should we move to?
Oh, he just popped up.
There we go.
Let's do it. Hold on real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilmember Donahue, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. We just did roll call, so I want to make sure you're here. Thank you.
Present.
Excellent. All right. Everyone has in front of them an agenda for tonight's meeting, and I am looking for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have an agenda. We'll start off with citizens' comments. We'll check and see first, I think, online. I noticed we have a bit of a full house tonight. If anybody in the audience at the Mill would like to make a citizen's comment, there are some green sheets in the back, or at this point, you could just raise your hand, but we'll start with folks online.
Yeah, I don't see anybody yet, but if you are online on our Zoom meeting and you would like to speak during citizen comments, if you could raise your digital hand, now is the opportunity. I'm seeing no hands.
All right, thank
Yep.
you. And we don't have any green sheets, and I don't see any hands risen. Going once, going twice. All right, no citizen comments this evening. Thank you. Then that leads us to our council training. So we have a great opportunity tonight to have David Klein share with us his wisdom about municipal budgets. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone over to him.
Mayor, council members, city administrator, all the community members here. Good evening. I'm David Klein. I'm here to talk about budgets, which is so exciting. I'm excited. Are you excited? I'm excited to talk about budget with all of you, and hopefully you'll get to learn a little bit. I'll learn a little bit more about your wonderful city. I've biked through the city. I'm born and raised here in Washington State, and so it's been great to see your fine city grow. And I don't know why you don't have the windows open right now to enjoy this beautiful day that your residents are enjoying as well. We're going to go through, and I think I actually have a clicker that might actually work. First of all, I just want to say thank you. This is a great honor to be here in front of you, and also what a great commitment that you have shown to your residents to talk about budget process. Most people would think that this is something like green shades and things that should be back doors, but no, this is something that you should talk to your community about openly, transparently. Talk to them about how you do your process, because this is one of the core functions you have as a elected official, is to make sure that your mission and vision of your city is shown. And I believe it is shown through your budget. I always say that if you can see someone's budget, you can see their values. That's where I kind of believe. So let's kind of go through the agenda for tonight. And let's see if, yeah, there we go. I'm going to do some introductions. I'm going to talk about what I had planned to talk about. But really, this conversation, we have about an hour together. I'm going to be hopefully checking the time here. And it's really based on your questions. A lot of these resources are online. A lot of my peers are through AWC and MRSC and GFOA, lots of different acronyms that we can go through. provide all of this online. And there's some great training that I'd really suggest to you to spend more time than just this 1 hour that we have together tonight. So first of all, who am I? I'm not going to break out in a song, but thank you. Thank you, some of you people. My name is David Klein. Right now, I am a professor at the University of Washington. I teach local government to second-year Masters in Public Administration school. I've been doing that for full-time, well, not full, teaching the course for 6 years, but I've been a guest lecturer for over the last 15, 20 years in that class. Before that, I was for 30 years. I was sitting in that chair where Mr. Brazel is, and being a city administrator for 18 years in King County, most recently in Tukwila for 12 and a half years. Like I said, I was born and raised here in Washington State. I've been here my whole life working in public service. I've worked in the county and worked in I've worked in small cities. I've worked in big cities, big counties, from when I could have my staff meeting in a room smaller than this and an organization that had 11,000 employees. So lots of different experiences. But one of the big things is my background is finance. I have a degree from Stanford University, and that was really based in public administration and finance. And I've really been doing budgeting and criminal justice most of my career, even in my city administrator role. And what I really enjoy is helping communities realize their vision and working with electeds get us there, because you get to represent portions and your whole community as a collective, which is really great to see. So let's talk about resources. We weren't going to be able to get to all your questions probably, or all the questions you might have afterwards. And there are so many resources online. And I'm just going to, for those who are in the public can go to these resources too. They're free, open, available. The very first one, and this presentation I'm doing is based on that very first one, is called Budgeting Basics. It's a 10-part series. The videos are 7 to 10 minutes long, done by Tracy Dunlap, who is a former finance director and deputy city manager of Kirkland, good friend of mine. And so why would I try to recreate the wheel? She's done it already. And so I used a lot of my material from her. There is a municipal budgeting workshop, August 5th and 6th. I'm going to make a plug. Many of my friends are teaching that course. Was just talking to one last week in Leavenworth, so I want to make a plug for that. If you want to hold 2 days talking about budget with other elected officials around the state of Washington, I can't suggest that enough. And then there's lots of things in Association Washington Cities. They have surveys of how does your city compare to other people on your utility taxes, on your other types of fees, your property taxes, things like that. They have great things. And then the Municipal Research and Service Center, this is unique to Washington State. It's just a wealth of information. Who's actually called or looked at the MRSC website before? If you haven't yet, I would go there. I'm always amazed that I have a question and I try to resolve it myself. And before AI and ChatGPT, you would go to MRSC and they would have the answer for you. If not, you can call them and say, my city is talking about this. How would you suggest we deal with that? And they have people on staff to work with you. They have a budget preparation checklist. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And each year they come out with budget tools that most finance departments and everyone uses every year to help them prepare their next year's budget. Then it continues on. The state auditor office has a financial intelligence tool. Anyone in the community can go online and see how you compare to other cities based from the government performance office there. And Government Finance Office Association, if you really want to go into the details, this is the professional association that your finance directors usually are actively involved in. So that's a lot of resources there. And so we're not going to get through all that in the next 55 minutes here. And so this was what I was hoping to talk about. These are the 10 topics that are in that budgeting basics. It goes from what are budgets? Why do cities have them? Roles and responsibilities, funds and revenues, strategic goals, capital, facilities, revenue forecasting, balancing budget, communications, community engagement, and accountability. I have slides on every single topic here are ready to talk about all these 10 topics. But again, what I really want to do is hear from each of you. So that I can tailor. And if we just get a conversation with me and you tonight and we don't get to my slides, you have my slides in front of you. I may use them as reference tools, but I'd really like each council member to give me at least one question that is on your mind. I've given you some questions that you could talk about. What do you have about what questions do you have or concerns, issues, ideas about the budget process? Some of you have gone through a budget process before. What worked well? Or you've seen the budget process. What could be improved? So those are some of the questions, but I'll leave it to you and I'll hand it back to the council president and you can guide us in these questions and I'll take these questions and then we'll try to get all the questions and then I'll see if I can group them. And if I go through my slides to answer them or if I just talk through them, that would be great.
That
Okay?
sounds great. I don't want to, I don't want to like monopolize the time and Kim has her hand raised. So I'm going
Oh,
to turn it back over,
there we
turn it
go.
over to Kim.
So this is a question that I've heard a lot. So as new council members, that previously we maybe ran small businesses, we ran our household budgets, we set priorities. We had, this is how much revenue we have. This is, how much expenditures we have. How are we going to make those two meet? And then over the last couple of years, I've only been on council, not quite 2.5 years. I hear a lot that the budget is a living document, that it's different than a household budget or even a small business budget. That's a living document. So I would like to hear a little bit of conversation on that and the definition of what does that mean?
Great question. Thank you.
Do you want to collect questions from
Yeah.
all of us first?
Yeah, I think I would like to, because there's probably, some of you may have similar questions or I can kind of group them. And I do have most of my slides are more visual. So I can kind of bring up some of those visual slides to maybe hopefully answer some of these things too. But,
Right.
okay. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Yeah.
My question is surrounded around the community engagement part. So as a former, just regular citizen, up until 5 months ago, the city budget was foreign. It wasn't something that was really talked about in the community as far as I have seen. And so I think making sure that we have that community engagement is important, and people understand where their tax dollars are going and what money's coming from what. And so I would really like to hear anything that you might have as far as suggestions on how we can increase our community engagement around our budgets.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. So for a guy who has crafted several award-winning budgets from your first slide there, how much of that is hard data, like percentage-wise versus forecast?
Okay. Great. Thank you.
One question that comes up for me, and I think is especially relevant given your experience in different areas of municipal government. Over the years, we've had different council members have strong feelings both ways about whether or not there should be like a budget subcommittee. And so maybe 2 or 3 council members and 2 or 3 budget staff or city staff that come together and really sort of dive deep into the budget. And I'm curious to hear from where you sit, if you've seen that, if you have favorable or not favorable experiences of orienting the budget work that way.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some of the questions I have are about long range projections, so 5 years out, especially in years where expenditures are greater than revenues by far. What is that balance? What is a budget balance look like when you have expenditures greater than revenues? What is the cash balance recommended, or how do you see the cash balance changing throughout the year, and how is it different at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year? And then what is typically the minimum operating reserves that is recommended for a city of our size to have, and make sure that in those years where we dip into that, we don't go below, is it 10%, 20%?
Okay.
So mine's more of a comment than a question. Over the last couple of years, as I've watched the process, it seems like city staff comes in with a wish list, and it's not a bad wish list, but it's a lot of things of, hey, it'd be really nice if we could X, Y, Z. And then fairly quickly, the council can say, hey, we can't do any of those things. So that's nice to know. So I guess I'm just wanting to talk about as a council at some point, right? How do we, before the staff goes and does too much of that, hey, this is what we'd like to have, how do we level set in front to some degree to give some guidance before they go spend too much time and don't waste that time if we're going to come back and just say, oh, actually, we have no budget for anything. If anything, we're going to cut. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. How do we level set and communicate in advance before too much work is done on a mayor or staff budget?
And I checked in with Councilman Donahue. He doesn't have any questions yet.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a little bit more time. Was there any other questions that someone dying to put in there? These are great questions. I'll answer them all. Anything else that was on people's minds? The second round.
Is there a software package that you recommend for long-term projections
Okay.
and financial modeling?
All right, and I guess if we're looking to kill time, I do have a question I could ask. So when it comes to city budgets, one thing that and maybe there's a reason for this because it does differ in some ways from personal budgeting, but one topic I never really hear come up is the idea of trying to save. So excess revenue, saving it away, banking it, building up a fund for projects down the road. As it seems to usually be, how are we covering expenses? What sort of financing do we need? So I'm curious, in your experience, have you ever seen cities try to proactively save and build up cash reserves for future projects or emergencies or things like that?
Okay. All right. Anything else? And feel free to interrupt and ask questions along the way. I'm sure we'll fill up that hour very quickly. So the first thing I heard was about the budget process. So I'm just going to jump to one slide we have here. Let's see if I can get there. Just a little bit. What are budgets and what do cities have them? The big thing, budgets are legally required. We all do them. These are all the different reasons that we have budgets, accountability management tool, planning documents. They're impacted by all sorts of other plans you've already done. It's not a one and done thing. And this gets a little bit to why is it a living document? Because you're updating these type of plans, your economic development plan, maybe your master plans for capital and things like that. You're constantly updating that. And so your budget reflects those constant changes. But this next slide, this is a slide that I like to use. It's, even from the National Advisory Council on State and Local Budgeting. I'm sure if you go to that website, there's even more information. If you could delve in, you could be the budget pioneer here, or person who, if you want to do this, you'll see it's a circle. You see it's a circle. It is constantly going. And the very first thing, and we'll come back to Councilmember Edwards, you talked about community engagement. We'll get to that slide. But of course, the very first thing is you are representing your community. You start with stakeholder input. And now that can be from your community members, that can be your business owners, that can be residents, that can be visitors. Stakeholders is a broad group. You're going to be talking to a lot of people, your professional staff and your fellow council members. And the very first thing you do is, like any household budget or things like that, you do have vision and mission and strategic plan that should guide what your budget is. And that's the first thing I would say that my suggestion to councils, at least, is you need to have a strong vision of what you want your community to be. That's really why most of you were elected, because you care deeply about this community, you want the best things for it. And so the 7 of you all need to come to an agreement of what does that future vision look like? And that usually is 10 years, 20 years out. And the budget is reflecting just a 1-2 year look at it. Capital is going for 6 years. That's the hard work that you as a council need to do, is come to an agreement among the 7 of you, and with and the mayor gets involved in this as well, and the city administrator and the staff, is like, what is the future vision for Lake Stevens? That's hard. And what are we going to do about that vision this year? What steps are we going to do this year to get us to that vision? What is our 6-year plan to get us to that vision? Your comp plan gives you a 20-year vision, and you want to move to that. So your budget is showing that. On this thing, you'll see that the very first thing, and Councilmember Pack, you talked about the direction, and it really comes from this. In a strong mayor system, the mayor does propose the budget and the council adopts it, but in their between time is the council gives direction to the mayor and staff and the city administrator about what your priorities are and what you expect to see in a budget. One example of this I'll give in my own personal experience as I was, learning the ropes was I had heard from the community that we needed to replace our facilities in one city. And so I heard direction from the mayor that we're going to replace all of our facilities. So we built a budget that was going to replace all our facilities. What I forgot to do was ask the council if that was their priority too. Well, it wasn't at that time. The council had a better idea. It said, Mr. Klein, that's a great idea, but why don't we have a plan first? And so they stripped the budget of these large capital investments and they gave us planning money to do a master facility plan. And we did that. It took us 2-3 years to do a master facility plan, came back to the council, got votes on that. And in the end, we went out to the public and got a $78 million voter approved budget at over 60% for a bond. And that was really council direction. The council directed that came from the strategic plan that said we should have safe, efficient facilities. The council directed us to create a facility plan and we budgeted the money for that. And then we came to the council for a financing plan and the council directed staff, these are the different tools we're going to use. And part of it was a voter approved bond. Another of it was using long-term capital funds. And someone else talked about, do people reserve funds for future capital projects? Good cities do. Good cities plan into the future. And as your own home budget, you can think about it, it's really hard to plan for when you need to repair the roof. That's a big expense. If you have to re-roof your house, and you can put that off, and you can put it off and put it off. And if you put it off until you really need an emergency repair, that's going to be very expensive. It would have been better if you had set some money aside or taken something out and done it when it was sunny outside and you had planned for it and you did that on a timely basis. So many cities, city I worked in, city of Burien, a big council priority was to build a downtown. We had to buy land, we had to buy money, we had to build buildings. And so we saved probably for about 10 years until we could realize that community goal, but council directed goal of a downtown. And we bought land, we bought facility, and you can go to Burien Town Square now and see what the community got for that savings and money. But it was hard. It was hard to save that money because the individual needs for new council members, police. Wouldn't you like that, new council members? New police officers, more sidewalks. There's always those constant daily needs, and that's why you do these other plans that help direct it. But back to this, you're going to give direction to staff. They're going to come back to you during the summer. They're going to tell you what the projections look like, how the revenues and expenses look like based on your financial plan, your financial policies. You've directed them about how much reserves you should have. And they'll come back in the fall with an operating budget. And in the fall, from September to December, you'll debate that. See if that met your community values and your vision. And my suggestion is always adopt that earlier. There's a couple cities who have gone all the way to the deadline, which is December 31st. City attorney would tell you would need an emergency ordinance to pass that. I would not suggest that. That is not good financial planning. You need to get your own house in order, work together. Budgeting is a team sport with the city staff, the mayor, and the council working together. So why is it a living document? I think I have one more slide on this one here. Let's see. Yeah, this one kind of talks about a longer term plan. You'll notice that there's all these citizen surveys. Community involvement is that big, long green line down there. Is that you have community involvement when you do your comp plan, when you're doing planning phases. You have open public comments. You probably have town meetings. You probably have all these open house ways that you get community involvement throughout the whole year. Your budget is adopted in December, hopefully. Sometimes people even do it in November. But that's a tool and that's a guide, what you think the future looks like. But during the Great Recession, I'll tell you one time I adopted a budget in the Great Recession. And might be someone in the audience who was there when we did this, and the council adopted it on December 15th. The Great Recession took place. And in January, we had to open that budget and start laying staff off. It was painful. It was terrible, but it's a living document. The times had changed within that 1 month. Our resources, which were sales tax and property tax, which is most cities, and this one was mainly property tax. I say sales tax wasn't going to be coming in, and we couldn't afford the staff that we had, and that was very hard. But that's why it's a living document, is because things might change. You might get a Costco in that you didn't recognize the revenues were coming in, and you want to use those revenues for something. So you might want to change those things. And so that's why during these budget processes, there's usually an amendment cycle. There's in this cycle, you'll see is, if we go back here, went too far. Right here, you'll see monitor results. So they're going to adopt the budget in December. You're going to say, is the world like we forecasted it? If it isn't, then we need to make changes. You often have budget amendments or changes to your budget during the year. Every single city does that to manage it, because you have union contracts that might come up during the year. You might have other things that come up, council priorities, capital, and you'll make adjustments. And then you'll start this process again. And that's a very typical budget. That's a well-run budget. For Lake Stevens, just want to go through here, is you have a strategic plan. And from my look at it, it looks like a good strategic plan. It has a vision, a mission. It has different priorities. In the notes, you can see what you've talked about, your priorities. And so I would be suggesting, this to see for the mayor and the city staff is, how is your budget realizing this strategic plan that you have for the next 6 years? Is your budget moving you forward into those different areas? Is a key thing that I would be suggesting to people. Talked about a little bit, I think Councilmember Donahue talked about, well, no, I think actually Packard was talking about, who gives direction to whom. This one, I actually like this slide a lot. There's one more slide I'm going to show you. Budgeting is a team sport. It's not just a council thing. It's not a mayor thing. It's not the city administrator. It's not just the finance director, not your city staff. It's everyone getting engaged. And you'll see at the top of it are residents. Right below that, the council gives you get direction. Council gives direction to the mayor and the city administrator, then the department directors, and under that, the manager and supervisor. And this one is a great one. We use this a lot. I use this with my, when I work with elected officials. I use this in my second year MPA students, is to talking about roles. And a lot of times I find when I work with councils and elected officials is people don't stay, we use the term stay in their lane. What is my lane? And everyone wants to be in everyone else's lane and keep you out of their lane. We're all in each other's business, I would say. And so that's just the nature of it, is that we all are concerned about what's going on in the day-to-day. We're also concerned about what the future looks like. And so this one is a kind of a flight path analogy. And you'll see that green line is really the council's role. There's only 7 of you. You've got to be dedicated to what is your goal and vision and give clear, concise direction to the city staff so they can meet it. And if you're on that far end and you're doing the day-to-day work, you're making sure that pothole is done. You're making sure that stop sign was put in correctly. Then who's doing the strategic planning? Who's doing the visioning for your community? Who's listening to your community if you're doing the day-to-day work? That's not a good use of your time. That's why you hired excellent staff to do that. And so this is usually there's another, there's lots of different graphics. I like this one because, maybe I just like planes or something like that, but it kind of gives you this overview is there's only 7 of you and you have to all work together. And you have other responsibilities and time. And so that getting together is really your strategic plan, your strategic goals, your key priorities. And then you start handing it off to staff. And that's hard because you really want to get there, because I would say, we all, when we built something, when I was remodeling, I really wanted to know what the color of the carpet was and the side doors and all that stuff. But if I'm doing that, then I've forgotten what the overall budget was. I've forgotten what the house was supposed to look like. And so those are the key things that I would suggest is that if you're finding conflict between individual council members or council to staff and mayor to council, is usually this is where that conflict usually causes most concern. In one council I was at with a strong mayor system, I loved it was that I often would hear someone would talk about, they would come to the community member would say, well, we need to get a strategic plan or something like that. And the mayor would say, well, council, yes, you need to create a strategic plan. We'll help you create that, but that's kind of the council's work. And then the person would say, I didn't like that pothole, how you did that. And the council would say, well, mayor and city administrator, it looks like you have some work to be done on that pothole fixing or whatever issue of the day. And it's a hard task to do, but that is where I see better cities work together, is handing off what role do you have? What role do I have? And when people are successful there, then the whole city and the community is successful. But that's hard. And I'm not going to suggest, because you'll notice that green line, you're still involved in that day-to-day work. You still are concerned about how that pothole, and you need to know, but how much do you need? How much time and energy are you going to spend on that side versus the direction and priorities? I think that's a key thing that if you're asking for advice, which I think you're asking for my advice, this is a key step that along the way I'd look at. There was a question about, let me see what else here. We just want to make sure I get all your things here. The budget awards, I'm going to just talk about this a little bit. I talked about Government Finance Officers Association, Councilman McManus, is they give you a checklist of what is an award-winning budget. And so the reason I say is award-winning was many of the jobs I brought into a city was to create that award-winning budget. Go through that checklist, make sure our budget aligns with that checklist, and go get that award. And every single city we did that, and we got that award. And you said, how much of it is based on hard data versus forecast? Both. Most of those budget forecasts, and you have a couple charts in your budget, I can show you that, you're meeting many of those things. I'm not sure if you've actually checked all those things to get that award. It takes some time. It takes some energy. You have to have the right systems. Councilmember, you talked about what systems could do that. The actual numbers, a typical budget goes back a couple years of historical data by department, or you can do it by themes or whatever, but goes back and says, this is how we have spent the community's resources. That's the hard data. There's no, you've closed the books in 2023 and 24 and 25, maybe it's a little bit, not 25, you don't know, but 26. And then you start doing estimates and adjustments, and then you start forecasting. And I would say good forecasting is out 6 years. Because you 6 years is the best strategy that's usually based on capital planning. And those are, so you have hard data and you have a forecast. And I would say this is something that being a budgeteer, a finance person is, budgeting is really forecasting. It's your vision future. What do you think the future needs? And how are we going to meet that need? A budget is a reflection of what you believe the future should look like. And you have to change it. It has to be a living document because the future never ends up exactly as we expected. So that kind of is, did that answer your question a little bit about that?
Yeah, a little bit. We were down at the AWC meeting earlier this year at the state.
Yeah.
They gave up, Governor Ferguson talked about how we got in trouble because we used the wrong budget figure for projections of 4%, I think, or close to 4%. When the actual standard is 1.4.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do that anymore because that got us in $4 billion of debt as a city, right? And then he comes in, the financial guy comes in the next day and he goes to the projections and I asked, are you using the 4.0 or the 1.3 standard? And it's 4.0.
Okay.
So it's like just a lesson in stupidity, basically, right? If you're using the same number that's not getting you anywhere for 4 years, you probably won't go with the norm. So are there standards that are public?
So a key thing I would suggest, and again, I'm not an expert on Lake Stevens, you are, your staff is. I've been, I've worked in lots of different, I've worked in the county and different cities. I don't know the history of your budgeting and all your priorities and all the past work here. But the key thing in a budget is a way to document it. And so when you're asking those questions, you can say, what were your assumptions? Is you document those assumptions and you can see if you're right or not. And it's very typical in projections is to give those percentages. And we think sales tax is going to go up 3% this next year based on historical past or future, what did you base that on? And it went up 5%. Good for us. Or we based it 3% and it only came in 1% because of XYZ. And so I think the key thing in a budget is you should document it, it should be available, and you'd be able to show that to the public so you can see. We make assumptions, and our assumptions, that was that monitor results piece is, are we on track? And a lot of times that's where people do financial forecasting, is saying on a quarterly basis is usually best practice. Come back to the council or the community and say, the first quarter is a hard one because you don't have enough information, but by about 6 months in, are the revenues coming in as we had expected? And if not, then maybe we need to make some amendments to do that. Yeah, but I think that was a good question, is like, you challenge the question, they had the answer, and then you can, you can have that debate about what is the right number for that. At the same time, I'm always interested. I remember one time I was given a task to go project revenues. And one thing about budget, I'll just go to a quick slide here. One, you do have a budgeting calendar. This is what was presented in the last budget cycle. This is very typical. It meets the legal obligation. It kind of talks about where the council's role is, hands off to the mayor, comes back to the council. I would expect that this is what most good cities are doing, is something like this timeline. But a key thing when you're looking at revenues is you need to know, here's your revenues. These are all revenues. Taxes are 48%, charges for services because you have utilities and public works, so you have more of those. Most time spent in budgets is on general fund. That's where public safety resides. That's where most of the city administration resides. It's not as based in capital and utilities, which have their own fundings. You can't usually use those for operating. Most cities spend their time here. This chart is from your last budget. This is a very typical chart in the state of Washington. Is property taxes here is, about a third, sales tax about a third, and utility tax a little bit less than that. 85% of your revenues are in those three sources. Property tax, most people, because of the 1% limit, I can predict property taxes except for new growth for the next 5 years. Actually, it's why people's bond ratings go up a little bit, because Washington State has a very clear property tax code. Now, on the other side, it doesn't catch up with inflation. Sales tax is the most volatile one in there, and utility taxes can be volatile based on consumption. This is where you should spend your time, on the revenues. Those three revenues, and sales tax is one that people usually track a lot more because that's the most volatile of the big three. But that's 85% of your revenue. Those other ones are going to be, a little bit more stable, and some of those are grants and things like that that are going to come in anyways.
Thank you.
Okay. I did want to, while we have time, community engagement. I just want to get right to that. And it's near the end of my slide deck, so let me get right there. We'll come back to this slide. This one is the most controversial slide in my deck here. So there you go. It's a teaser there to come back. So first of all, types of community engagement. I listed a few, and I'm sure I've missed another dozen or two types of way of community engagement. There are every single city that I've ever worked in, a council priority is we want to learn, we want to hear from the community about this issue or that, the budget, the comp plan, this planning issue, the topic we're talking about tonight, whatever it is. Because you're built here to represent the residents of your community. And there are so many different ways to find out what your community does. Here are all the different ways. I'd say websites and social media. Amazing that most surveys print newsletters to people's homes still is a very high priority. People like, even though we don't get paper in our mail, people like having something, a newsletter, something tangible to look at. Open houses I've seen are very, very effective is having a conversation. I would say the least effective is someone like me standing up here and talking at you for 3 minutes is probably the least effective way to get community engagement because there's no back and forth. I've already come with my idea and issue and I'm ready to go, I've been thinking about it for weeks maybe, and I finally got out of the gumption to come talk to you. And we're built that was a topic we didn't have on our agenda. And so there's a lot of great new processes. Actually, I'm involved in this one there. I threw this in because it's kind of a new term called civic assemblies. If you want, this weekend is the second weekend. It's in Snohomish County. We're at Wazoo Everett doing this. I'm part of a group that is facilitating the nation's largest civic assembly, and it's happening here in Snohomish County. We've asked 40 random presidents, like a jury trial. We just asked random people to come into a room, and we got them geographically based, age-based, and they're asking a question of give direction to the Snohomish County Council about AI policies. Very interesting. So we had the first meeting of these 40 individuals 2 weeks ago. If you'd like, you could come and observe. Either they're this weekend or they're also June 6th and 7th. It's a great thing, but this is 6 days, 8 hours a day. These residents have agreed to come together. Not only it's a time commitment, it's a lot of resources of people. You can see this. But this is trying to get rid of that kind of people yelling at each other that you see in social media. Can you get people in the room? Because I truly believe that most of us are reasonable people and we care about our community. And I'm sure you have a great idea and I have an idea, and probably both our ideas together would get a better idea. And that's my suggestion to you is, are there ways that you can bring together people in a facilitated, deliberative conversation, and not taking sides, but really trying to listen to people deeply? A key issue here, though, is it takes resources. It takes a lot of resources and takes time. And so you need to figure out which issues are worth those resources, those valuable resources you have to say, this is an issue. One city, Kirkland, kind of chooses like 3 topics a year. We're going to really delve deep into our community, and they have a whole process and a team they have a whole department that is just on community engagement. Most cities we couldn't have a whole department based on that. So we had to work with the resources we had. But really it's a question amongst you. It's like, what have you found helpful? And there's, like I said, there's probably even better ideas than I've listed here on these things. There's a lot of resources on how you do community engagement or facilitation. This one is a great one. It's IAP2, their International Association for Public Participation. You can go on their website. You can go to trainings actually for them. And they talk about increasing level of public impact. And the key thing is, what is your public participation goal? And one key thing is like during emergency, you're not going to have a town hall. You're not going to have a debate about it. You're going to inform the community because your fire chief and your police chief are going to tell you what is the best thing for us to do, and your public works director at this time, because it's an emergency. But there are some other ones that you want to consult with your community. You want to involve the community in this decision, this difficult decision you have. You want to collaborate with the community. But you have to choose your level of participation, and each of those increasing levels usually take more time, more staff, and more resources. And so this is up to the council. It's like, not every single one can have the top, you can't meet all your goals. You have conflicting values here. You have resource constraints, time constraints, and you want to get community input. So you need to kind of, triangulate all those competing values. And that's why we have councils, is to help us triangulate those competing values in our communities. All right, I got 15 minutes left here, and let's see what other questions I didn't get to. A budget subcommittee. I don't have a one about this. It really is, I've seen it both ways. I don't know what your history is, so I'm not sure if I'm going to step into something if I say, you should do this. And I would never say, because I'm a key person who says there are many ways up that mountaintop, and you as a city need to find out what best fits your values and what has historically done. I've seen it both ways. I would say the budget is a document that the whole council has to own. And the community has to own. And so whatever you choose, it needs to involve all the community members, all the council members, especially so that there's nothing hidden from public view. And so I've been in communities where we've done a budget committee. If you're looking for my own personal thing, I'm going to step in it right now and saying, I don't think for that community, it was kind of sidelined the rest of the council. There's better ways to do that because you may have too many things. And if that community subcommittee came back to you a lot, so you were directing that subcommittee, so you felt you owned the end budget, that would be a good process. In the community I was working in, it was kind of like 3 council members went off in a corner and handed the rest of the council the budget. And that didn't feel good for those other council members. And at the same time, it takes a lot of time to bring all 7 of you in the same room at the same time to talk about these issues. Best practices I've seen is starting early and May? And you have me talking about the budget. I think that's a great beginning. You've probably been talking about the budget before this, and you've been concerned about the finances of the city since were elected, before you're elected, currently as you're elected. You should be. That's that's one of the key goals you have, key priorities. So my thing is that you get to choose committees if you have committee structures or not. It's not based on the committee. It's really based on the ownership of the elected officials. Do they feel like they owned? Were they part of? Did you get your needs met? You're not going to get a yes on everything because you're 7. You all have great ideas. But did you feel listened to? Did you have a participatory process? Did you listen to the experts in the room, which is your quality staff? They have a lot more knowledge about these topics than most electeds do because that's just not their day-to-day business. And so that's working together. Like I said, I can't say it enough. Budgeting is a team sport. Before we run out of time, I'm going to go back to that teaser. One thing you talked about was, long-range budgeting. I'm going to go back to this slide that I've seen. This is your long-range forecast. This is very typical that you show revenues and expenditures over time. How does it go over time? You'll see that it goes out several years. It has actuals from a previous year and then a few years out. And you'll see that the lines, I say the lines cross. This is a very technical accounting term, that at some point your expenditures are going to exceed your total revenues and resources. And I would say, and this is here's the most controversial slide in the deck, is you're not alone in this. Most cities, every single city, every county I've worked in, have this lines crossing sometime in the future. And that's kind of built in to the way that we do budgeting, because we hopefully over forecast our expenditures and under forecast revenues, or, we're trying to be more optimistic than the future, or we're trying to be more conservative about those things. Not always. But the main thing is that the state of Washington, unlike other states, we don't have an income tax, is property tax, which is 1/3 of your revenue. If I was here in this city hall 27 years ago, that limit for you as elected officials would have been 6%. Think about those budget decisions that you would have had to been able to make. So my first decade working with budgets was working with elected officials who they had the authority to increase their property taxes up to 6% per year to meet public safety needs, to make parks, get fire, all the resources, all those service needs that people have. Because of community input and national statewide votes, and the state legislature imposed this, was since 2000, that has been taken away from you and it's been handed to the residents. And that's a key thing I really want to make sure I tell you, is that many people think that that limit is a structural limit that you can never surpass. And that's not true. What that means is that's all your authority is. But you went out to the community for a transportation benefit district. That increased your revenues, that increased your resources. That was a community conversation you had with the community, and the community supported you. Communities, and you can go on the MRSC database, they have all the public votes. I would say that most communities have to involve their community. Back to Councilmember Edwards, you talked about, the community doesn't often know that. doesn't know that they're part of the solution in this debate about budgets. How do I get involved? I want to be involved. I didn't realize that these parks were costing us more than the revenues we had, or the police department is taking up more than 50% of our budget. I didn't know that. I was like, well, because we're doing the good work, we're making sure it works. And so this is a key thing, I would say. How do people deal with this structural deficit? There are city decisions you have. You can make efficiencies. One time in a budget at the county, I had to cut my staff by 10%. And the elected officials also gave us technology improvements to soften that blow, so we would automate some of our processes that were very paper oriented at that time. But it was we had to decrease services overall because we just didn't have the staff resources. We look for new revenues. There's councilmatic choices that you have. Here's a couple of them. And you can go out for voter approved funding. Think of school districts that go out every 3 to 4 years. They're kind of built that is a community conversation. They know, they're going to have a conversation with you for their operating. When they're building new schools, they come to you for their support. Cities, we need to learn that as well, how to engage the community on an ongoing basis year round, so that they're part of that process with you. It's not just an us, them, we're all in this together. And a lot of times community decisions, other communities around here have done community task forces, financial sustainability plans, getting the community together for a few months or a year to look at your finances. A lot of good examples here. Just your next door neighbors have done a lot of these things. Find ways to bring the community in on input on how do you prioritize these services. You have some hard decisions to make. How do you make those decisions? And then you look for voter supported funding to maintain those services. If the community wants the same service level, then you should tell them how much that's going to cost and different ways that they could fund that. Or if they don't want to support that level of service, then you can tell them what the impact is to them and their community as well. And that's an open, transparent conversation that we should all be willing to have in our community. Okay, let me see if I got all the different ones here. I think, Councilmember, I'm not sure if I answered yours about, is it, the long range forecasting of revenues and what should what should your fund balances look like? I would say GFOA has a standard. The larger the organization, usually the less, if you're a very small organization, you need a higher reserve. So I've seen cities much smaller than you have a very high reserve just because, 1 month or because the sales tax could make a big difference. The county, they're probably in the 5-10% range. School districts, my wife was a school board member for, elected official for 12 years. They went from 5 to 10%. Most cities, medium-sized cities, is you want about, I would say, 20-25% in reserves in your general fund, either through operating reserves or a contingency reserve, all of those reserves. And according to what I saw in your general fund, you're meeting that right now in all your reserves accounts that you have. But a key thing that you can do is state that clearly in a financial plan and a policy that we should be here. And if we're over time, when those lines cross and we're not going to meet that need, then what are those choices that we're going to do? And it's not going to give, you're not going to give details without saying, you're trying to find out what is that number, what is that policy, what are the services you're going to direct the staff to come back to you with a plan of, if you're looking to reduce services, then give us a plan and tell them your values, what kind of services you want to keep, what things you're thinking about, and have them do the hard work of giving you options about that. It's not your task to find the $10 here and the $15 there. That's not a good use of your time. Your time is to look at what is, those lines are crossing in the future. What do you need to do now in the future to talk about it? And a lot of it is you need to involve your community in this, because most answers, they may have better, the better answers come from more people. The community will have good answers along that, and they should be part of that because they're the ones who are benefiting from the services you're providing. Councilor, you talked about the city has a staff, city staff have a wish list. Often I would say that's usually based on, because they're looking at that priorities, that strategic plan has lots of things. You're not going to meet every single one of those every single year. And so the staff is trying to meet your needs. That you have a strategic plan. Well, if you want to maximize every single one of those 5, 6 areas, well, we have great ideas for you. And then they're bringing it to you, say, well, you need to balance those priorities. And that's the art of councils, is you get to, and that's the hard part. I mean, is you have competing values and you can't maximize them all. And so that's why we've entrusted the 7 of you to make those decisions on behalf of your community, is because you represent the community. And you get to have a deliberative conversation about which of these things this year, this value might, next year, this one. But I would always suggest that you need to be thinking 6, 10 years, because one of the last things I would say, the last slide has some little comments here. And I really like this last one. One is that, oops, yeah. Well, one is just my last thing, because I think budgets are amazing. Everyone should care about, who should care about budget? Everyone should care about budgets, because they impact people's lives, hopefully positively. And then this last comment I like is from the GFOA. The budget process should ensure that today's choices do not compromise the ability of future generations to provide good public services to the community. I think that's a great quote. That's a long-range plan. You have tough choices in front of you. And I got 5 minutes left for any more questions here. But that was a quick view through the slides, but I really can't tell you enough that this was meant to be just a little drop in the bucket here, beginning this conversation. If I didn't get to your question, ask it again, and I'll see if I can answer it more directly. But I wanted to give 5 minutes back to you to ask me anything else you had on your mind.
That was great. Thank you.
Any last pressing questions or comments?
I have a question. I don't know if this is something that you particularly can answer. So I've been a citizen here for a very long time. And the things we're seeing going on in downtown and those type of things, I remember coming to a community engagement like 15 years ago. And we hired a consulting group and they did this whole, this is what we vision for our city. And it kind of sat there for the longest time and nothing really happened. And then all of a sudden, about 7 years ago, it started to move. And then bam, in the last 6 years, you've seen a lot get done. So the team that's now in place in the city is different. We have 4 new council members. We're going to have a new mayor. So this has been on the horizon. Like you said, this is something that was planned a while ago, but now we might have new visions. So what would your advice be as far as this has been in the works? We're seeing it move forward. We might have different ideas. How do you stay focused on that vision? Do you veer off course? Do you put on some brakes? That's kind of a little bit of what I'm seeing right now. So I'm just wondering your advice on that.
That is great council work. That is, you've just kind of put it in a nutshell, is that it's really hard. Is that, think about those people who came to that community meeting 15, 20 years ago, and they're going, whatever happened to that plan? And then they show up 20 years, they maybe left your community, they come back going, why did it take them so long? What happened? Other people are going, it's going too fast. I can't believe this happened. I wasn't part of that 20-year vision again. I want to be part of this. It's really a great process for you to reinvigorate. You have a strategic plan that is supposed to be broad enough for the next 4 or 5 years. Is that still meaningful to you? And I think it's really listening to each other as council members, as facilitated retreats or time together, not just I would suggest, get out of these tables, stand up, talk to each other, be in a more informal setting so you can hear what people are concerned about. Your new council members is they came to the council with a reason, and you need to hear what they have. And you have great ideas because you've been on the council. And so how do you work on those together? And it really is creating a new common vision amongst the 7 of you, because no one council member leads the boat. And a mayor doesn't lead, a city administrator doesn't lead. I can't say, The best council in cities that I've worked with have been a team environment of, yes, you can hold fast to your beliefs and feel strongly about those, but you know, the next person next to you might have a really great idea too, and you probably need to listen to them. And so my only suggestion is find ways to get off the dais on a weekend, afternoon, spend some quality time. And bring in someone from an outside facilitator, so it's not the city staff, that they can just help you guide a good conversation to say, what are your concerns? What are your visions of the next 20 years? And I have found that you'll find that there's actually more in common. What usually gets people upset is usually what's happening right now. Is something this year or next year is kind of the conflict, but usually people want the best thing in their community. They can agree what the 10, 20-year plan looks like. It's usually what's the next step? So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I really do think get off the dais, get out of this decision-making mode that you have something to do, you have to act, get to know people as people. You're all residents of this great city, and you all care deeply, and you all have come back from different experiences. And you need to find a way to listen and then act together. And that's working with your mayor, your city administrator, and your staff have worked with lots of other elected officials, and they have great ideas. How do you involve them in that? They're part of that process too. I would suggest as doing that. So there you go.
All right. This has been great. For me personally, it's good information. I learned some new things, but also some great opportunities to kind of sit back and think about the way we've been doing things and maybe have some conversations about how we want to do things differently. So I appreciate the information and the opportunity to kind of think about things a little bit. Yeah.
Well, it's been a great honor of mine to meet all of you, and I wish you all the best in a wonderful budget process. So it's so exciting.
Wonderful.
It's the most exciting time of the year. So, all
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a deep breath, move on. That was great. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Would love a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Also,
Second. Oh, go ahead.
you're good. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I just really quick want to say we've got consent agenda D is appointing new members to both civil service and salary. I want to congratulate Dixie Bain and Jeff Pigram for being new commission members. So with that, I will we'll vote on the motion. All those in favor of passing consent, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Consent passes. Thank you. And we'll move on to our action items. Action item 8A is updates to the council procedure. I'll turn it over to Clerk Chellen.
Thank you. Jean, you want me to take this? Okay, all right. And I did want to let you all know, if you didn't see it, Councilmember Donahue, he's online right now, so he can chime in, but he did send an email out to all of you today with more proposed changes to the procedures. But I figure I'll just go over mine quickly and then we can talk about his. So mine are just some housekeeping things from past meetings that we've talked about that we now just need to reflect within your procedures. So the first one was the order of the regular council meetings. We decided a while back that we would put the city department reports, council business, and mayor business at the end of the meeting. And so I'm just reflecting that in your procedures. Public records, we talked a lot about this. And so we came up with some language about when public records are created outside of the city's official systems, that the mayor and council are responsible for preserving those records in full compliance with Washington state law. So that language has also been added. We noticed we needed a clarification about that the mayor pro tem is the council president shall also be the mayor pro tem, as we defined in that code section 2.08040. And then lastly, two more here, the appointment process. We did not have it spelled out as to what we do when we have a vacancy in the mayor's office. So that's the last one. So we're reflecting that in your procedures. And that's the same as what we do for council vacancies. And then, skipping over number 4, also requesting an updated resume when we go out for those letters of interest besides just the letter. So those were staff's proposed changes. I don't know if we want to talk about those first and all that. Oh, yes, thank you. We did have your procedures reflect the motion that was made in April, that if you do have an internal applicant for the mayor position, that they would be excluded from the deliberations. So that exact wording is in there as well. Any questions, or any of those that you want to talk about a little further?
I do.
Okay, sure.
I think, thank you for making the changes and updates. And I think my only comment is in section 16, the public records. I have appreciated the conversation and some of the concerns that were captured in that conversation, especially about social media. I think that is what prompted the conversation to begin with. And that's kind of what prompted this paragraph to be so detailed and trying to be all encompassing, to trying to think of all the things that could go wrong. And I think thinking about it, I've personally come to the conclusion in reading it again that the initial paragraph that talks about public records retention, our responsibility to transfer them to the city's clerk for retention, our responsibility to make sure that we keep everything that can be publicly disclosed. I think that paragraph encompasses all of that quite well. And I don't know that we need to think of all the ways that we need to encompass that. I think that it doesn't lack anything. And I think that the language added is detailed, but everything was already included and covered by the preceding language. And so I think my concern would be that sometimes the more you try to think of all the ways that something can be covered, you end up adding liability potentially. And so I think that I don't see anything in this paragraph that is not already covered. And I think that my point would be to keep that language as is instead of changing it. So that's and I don't know if it's the opportunity to make an amendment to this, that would be my amendment to
So
make.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So the strikeout is what you would keep
Yes,
versus the new underlined
Correct.
language? Okay.
I think that it encompasses everything that the new language has. And I don't think it substantially adds anything that we are required already to keep everything that can be requested by the public. We are required to give it to you. Any questions in that we are bringing to you, anything that's duplicate. And so I think that was when I read that, I said, well, I don't think that there's anything that is not covered. And the only concern are things like handwritten notes. Do I have to make copies of those and provide them to you every week pertaining, in the details? I understand that that was meant for more social media posts, but then when you get to really prescribing a process that is now adding to something else that we need to do on a regular basis to give you as a process, I'm concerned that it just adds liability. And I don't think that it adds anything more than it's already covered. So I'll end there.
I think some of the language was added in response to the conversation around social media. And I think some of it came from our city attorney, especially around the Nissen affidavits, because those have become much more constant since these procedures were originally written.
And I think we have already signed those within the process that we have now. And I don't think anybody we don't need to have a policy that says you need to sign this. You provided it to us. We signed a declaration. So I don't know that needed to be included. But can I speak? Just on this
Yep.
one.
And then I want to hear from Greg, because I do think there's some language here that was specifically prescribed by him.
When I look at what's lined out, it talks about documents and, what was redlined out and we replaced. And the concern is, and I like examples of it. I mean, Nextdoor, people don't think of Nextdoor being a big platform or anything. And it's my understanding that's what Spokane County is in a huge lawsuit because someone didn't think to save that and turn that in. So I like how the changes are really saying every kind of communication because, and then you're right, Councilmember, right, in that online communication is constantly changing and evolving, right? I mean, it started with MySpace and then it moved forward, you know? So there's so many different ways to communicate. I like how it really stresses on every form of communication, where the lined out previous wording was focused more on documents. And I think there's less and less communication being done in the form of a document. And I'm sorry, Greg.
That's okay. I was just going to say that, you know, your comment is right. I mean, we had a short, succinct statement about responsibility. And, you know, where you draw the line in kind of, here's our basic communication, but then how do we do this? And, oh, I didn't know I needed to do it that way or whatever. What I think your new language does, well, it does several things, but it gives a little more direction as to how you as council members carry out this responsibility to get documents to the city, how they need to receive it in a way that's going to work with their record keeping. So I think, you know, and some of that language is in the first paragraph and in a couple of the other paragraphs. They take some language from your old statement that's repeated here again. And then it kind of concludes with, okay, you as council members, you just can't kind of, this is the city clerk's job to, you know, the records keeper to make sure that this policy is carried out. There's a statement here that basically says it's going to take you to make this work. and that if city gets records requests, you need to anticipate and know that we're going to send you, we've got this request and you have a responsibility to look through your documents to see if you have anything and then to get those documents to us. So it's a little more fuller, complete statement that, in my opinion, you know, it gives you more direction. As counsel for the city, you know, questions that come up with regard to records and councils is usually from council members who say, well, do I really have to do that? You know, do I, you know, I don't have time to go back and look through my stuff to see if I've got stuff on my phone or of course, you can avoid doing that by not using your phone or not using other, you know, private resources and stuff and make it a lot easier. But what I like about the policy as it's been written, it sort of reinforces responsibility and what those responsibilities are and how we can make it work with the clerk's office to help them do their job. So it's not that much longer. Couple more paragraphs kind of separating things out, but I think it gives you a little more direction and kind of emphasizes the responsibility.
Has there been an example? You know, we're updating the policy regarding the mayoral position because we decided we want a different process. Has there been a time in the last, you know, few councils or administrations where the existing language regarding public records retention failed? Has there been a time where?
Probably Philly can answer a little more about that. I can just tell you that I have been involved in phone calls or things at different times where we're not getting the cooperation of one or more council members. And we know that they may have documents that, and that's a, you know, staff doesn't like to be in that position. I don't like to be in that position. And as attorneys, you know, we're always thinking of, yeah, this may not be a problem right now, but councils change, people change, and we want something that we're not having to, you know, to change or re-examine in a couple of years, that this is kind of, this works, this is a plan and it works. But yes, we have had those situations. And the paragraph, you know, at the bottom of page 12 and going to the top, you know, yeah, there's a reason that was included, and one of that was to address that issue. Yes.
And if I could just add on to that, that's well said. One of the key things here too in that first paragraph that had never been spelled out before is how you give it to us. It's really important that when you email it to me and to the clerk's office and to the team, that it has the subject line in it as to what it's regarding, because that's how our search system works. So if you just forward me something and I go to search for emails, I may not get it in the body. So the subject line is really important.
But I thought that Troy had mentioned we have AI systems that will search inside of the email. Like if I do notes
Yeah.
or social media post of a date,
Well,
that the search feature will tell you what it is. Is that not accurate?
Well, we're testing out a lot of that
Oh.
right now. There is some AI modules out there that can do that work, but it's really not. Go ahead. You can.
I would say as far as records management goes, it's just a really great best practice to try and be as organized as possible. So we are really just asking for that partnership, that if you are sending us things, it's not just in a large pile, but that we can, you know, have a process that organizes it as it's coming in. And yes, we do have tools to help us go further, but this would be a wonderful standard to set so that we're working again in partnership on records management.
Well, and I think the subject line in a post that has multiple subjects will be problematic potentially.
Yeah, and that's hopefully where
I
our
mean, you
tools
can't
can help
put a-
us out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't, but if you have this requirement stated this way, then it's probably a hard thing to do. In hopes that you will have the tools to then recognize if you don't have them right now. And we are basically adopting a policy that's subjecting us to put the subject line to accurately reflect the subject of the record. Yet we just discussed last time that there may be multiple subjects in a record. How do you write that in a subject line accurately? The answer was, well, we'll have technology, but now we're putting it in writing without that technology or.
I think in my experience, this level of detail is helpful. Having gone through many public records requests in my time here, I feel like I have to ask every time, okay, you know, what is it that you're looking for? Or how do I send it to you? Or are we doing affidavits? And so this to me gives me a place to, instead of asking those questions every time, it's just like, oh, this is what I need to do and this is how I need to do it. I also think we did have just that simple, succinct paragraph. And that hasn't met our needs because we've been talking about this for months at this point. And there's been requests from this council to have a more robust sort of description of what the process is and what is needed. So I feel like this strikes a good balance between, it's not pages, but it does give us a little bit more detail about what is needed and why and how to provide that. So I guess I like the balance that has been struck between what we used to have and what this could have been.
And to kind of piggyback on Greg a little bit, something I think to always remember as council members is we have elections every 2 years. So every 2 years, you might have different people sitting up here and we're supposed to reflect our community. So our strengths are really going to vary. And so having something detailed, I think, is helpful because we have had to, from what I understand, grab a hold of people's personal devices and search their personal devices if there's not enough forthcoming information. Do people recognize your metadata is accessible as well? You may change your mind afterwards and think, oh, I'm going to cover my tracks. No, they can actually petition for your metadata. And so I think someone that's in a career that's up to date on this is going to be like, well, this is a no-brainer. But maybe if it's someone who that's not their career, that's not their experience, they may not realize that. And depending on, I think I'm the oldest one sitting up here, but depending on your age even, I didn't grow up with computers. This was all new to me. If I didn't run a business, I would not be anywhere near as computer savvy as I am. So to keep that in mind too, for future council members, not necessarily just representing who's sitting here now. In 2 years, we may very well have different people up here. So that's something clear and concise for anyone who sits at this table, I think is important.
Greg, I have a question for you. You mentioned earlier that there were past council members or present council members maybe that were less than forthcoming. How does that even happen? Aren't you required to be forthcoming and to adhere to the public records law? So how are they doing that? And why?
Well,
Hopefully they're not here anymore if that was behavior.
You know, I don't, and I'm not going to begin to tell stories, but, you know, people are busy. People are busy, one thing, you know, and sometimes people, you know, for different reasons, they've used devices, you know. People have things you know, I'm not using my phone for this, you know, but, you know, sometimes people do. And this is all human behavior. And that's really the answer to this is that, you know, we're all human beings and we all do things that we could probably do better I think it's fair to say that, you know, for the most part, there's been a good relationship between the council and the staff and we haven't been hit with a public records lawsuit that has gone anywhere. And you know, I read about it all the time and I listen to my partners tell me about what's going on sometimes in their cities. And I thank God that we're not there. This city has done a really good job. And let me just, I don't want to say we haven't. We've done a good job, but I think this helps outline a better way of keeping that good record going.
Are there additional questions for staff regarding these updates to the council procedures? And if not, do we have a motion?
I think
Council President, Ryan wanted to go over
Donahue, Councilmember Donahue wanted to speak.
Councilor Donahue, do you want me to go over your email or do you want to do that? I know you're on your mobile.
I just want to clarify, are those related though to these specific
No.
actions? Those are,
No, but I thought we could incorporate all of the revisions if you're in agreement with Councilmember Donahue's revisions, but we can take them separately. Too.
To clarify, they are related to the updates, not the specific ones that we've just been discussing.
okay. So I think I'm open if it makes sense to have that conversation along with these proposed changes, then Councilmember Donahue.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly, I think most of them are pretty straightforward. If you wouldn't mind running through them, and then perhaps the last one I can chime in a little bit and we can go from there.
Yeah, so looking at the email that he sent, so section 22.3 on the appointment process, he says 22.3.1 lists both resignation and written intent to resign as grounds for declaring the office of mayor vacant. RCW 4212.010 only lists resignation. He is proposing that we remove the intent to resign language and only classify the office as vacant once the resignation actually occurs or takes effect. And I'm looking at Greg to.
The reason why that language is proposed is that the statute that is cited 4212.01, I mean, that's the law. You can't appoint, so for example, taking your situation, you could not, even though you learned a few days before the mayor actually, his resignation took effect, you couldn't appoint someone to fill his position until he was gone. But with this language, written intent to resign is intended in your council policy to do is to trigger you, to allow you to start a process. That oftentimes you may get a council member, in this case, the mayor, said, hey, I'm giving you notice, I intend to resign. in 30 days or 3 weeks. Do you want to wait a month before you start your process? Or since you've been given that news, you've been given the opportunity to start your process and you're going to be able to fill that position much quicker than you don't. So that's the language that we have here. No, you can't appoint someone to fill the council member or the mayor's position until they're actually gone. But your council procedures are intended to give you a policy of what do you do when a vacancy comes? And it's just a way of allowing you, if you do get that written notice, you can take action immediately to start a process going without waiting for the actual legal statutory vacancy to occur. So that's why it's there.
Oh, okay, then as long as it's clear, that we're not trying to replace what is still a legally sitting mayor, then I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we won't make a change on that one.
Absolutely.
The other one was just an error on my part. It listed one of the reasons that the office would become vacant. It's a death of a council member. Obviously, that meant death of a mayor. Hope that never happens, but that's what that should have said. Okay, and then section 22.4.1 on the interview meeting says the city council should ask the predetermined set of questions. Ryan is proposing, or Councilmember Donahue, to change it to a moderator or city clerk or designee to align with our current interview process.
But I guess current interview processes, in my experience, have been city council members asking the question.
Predetermined questions?
Yes. The interview questions.
Our last active process that we held, I asked the questions just so that you guys could listen and write. If you'd prefer to keep the language and keep that process and have you all take turns asking questions, that's fine. Or if having a moderator so that you're able to engage just as scoring and listening is better, then we can do that as well. It's up to you.
Could we
Because-
put and then let the current council decide if the
Decide.
council wants to do it or a moderator? Should we just put or?
Well, actually, the way this is written is more that the questions are going to come from you. Who is actually going to ask those questions? I don't think this paragraph ties you to anyone. If you decided you wanted the clerk to do it.
We can just
or-
decide
or
that.
you wanted to each ask a question, you could decide that. So this doesn't preclude you or decide that question. But you could put something here that does decide it and say,
But we could keep it the way it is, and then we could still decide that we want the clerk to, yeah. So I guess I would,
without changing your rule. Yeah, your
Right.
rule allows you to do that.
Okay, so we won't make a change right now at that point.
Yeah, it just seems like the language should then say the city council shall determine the set of questions which will be asked to each candidate. Because I see how Councilmember Donahue interpreted this as who's the person who's actually going to physically ask the question in the interview, which is not the point. So it seems like we could just change that language to focus on the real intent.
I agree.
Good
Okay.
suggestion.
Are you okay with staff just making that change? I'll listen it back and make sure.
Yes.
Go ahead, Councilmember Donahue.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying yes to your question.
Oh, great. Okay. And then the last thing, Ryan, I'll try to summarize this because I know you and I have talked about this. So the interviews for this mayor position are going to be done in public session. In the past, for council vacancies, we have asked the people interviewing the applicants to please, just out of respect, go out to Hartford Hall and not sit in on the other interviews to get any kind of unfair advantage. And Greg, you can correct me if I'm wrong. They could say, no, it's a public meeting, I want to stay. And then I think they can do that. But anyway, so the question came up about given that we're live streaming the council meetings now, would there be an advantage to one of the applicants watching the meeting out in Hartford Hall or watching the other interviews on a device? They could do that. I mean, it's being live streamed. They could join the Zoom meeting or they could watch it on YouTube. And I think Councilor Donahue, I don't want to speak for you, but I think his suggestion was, is our council agreement to not live stream for that particular part of the meeting? Record it and I'll post it later But, and that hasn't been our practice though, for any of our other council meetings. We've always live streamed. But is there a need to, or a thought or concern, not live stream necessarily?
Can I ask a
And let
clarifying,
the public know about that.
clarifying question?
Yeah.
If it's not live streamed, could somebody still use the Zoom link?
Well,
And
potentially, yes. I wouldn't advertise the Zoom link though. I'd be very clear that your only options to participating is in person or listening to it after the fact.
okay, thank you.
Question,
Well, go ahead.
just to make sure, the candidates will know the questions that we will be asking ahead of time, right?
That's.
Or
that's
we
for
are
us
still
to
yet
dis-
to-
We'll talk about
Okay,
that
okay.
some more, but
Just curious.
potentially, yes.
Okay.
If that's what you choose to do.
So that was an excellent summary. Two things. One, Councilmember Raya, to kind of piggyback off your question. I think my main concern, I mean, yes, the questions, but even if we provide those in advance, I would still be concerned about people being able to hear other answers and maybe gaining an advantage there. And then also, just to kind of reiterate why this is a concern, yes, people could come into the meeting, say, hey, this is a public meeting. I want to listen to the people before me. But as a council, we can see that and we can take that into consideration. I'm more concerned about somebody, discreetly watching online and us maybe not knowing, so they gain an advantage and we have no way to know about it. And so that's kind of where this is coming from, is just to try and level that playing field as much as possible.
Is there any reason why we should live stream? I mean, we're not required to do it. If it just gets posted an hour after it's all done, that seems like we're more than meeting the intent of making it a public meeting and making it available. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a change we made several years ago, being hybrid. That was our decision, was to be, for transparency, to be, and if you didn't know how to use Zoom, potentially you could get on YouTube and watch it.
and they still can watch it, just won't be live, but they still have access to it.
Correct. After the fact, I would upload it after the meeting is over, so they could watch it later.
I think that's reasonable.
I just want to make sure you guys understand, in my time here, almost 6 years, we've never done that before. And so I want it to be known that that's not been our practice, but certainly there could be reasons behind it. And if that's the choice you guys want to make, that's fine.
I would love to hear Greg weigh in, just if there's any
Well,
concerns.
legal. The legal answer is correct. We don't have to live stream the meetings. But we do have to make it clear to the public in advance of the meeting what it is, how they can participate, right? And so if you're going to do that, we would need a clear announcement to the public that for this meeting, there will be a live stream except for this portion of the meeting, so that people, if they want to hear it and they want to hear it live, they'll need to come to the meeting, right? So you'll satisfy the legal requirement. It's just whether or not you want to trust people to,
Can I give,
or different. I mean, I've seen councils handle this in different ways, and most they'll send people out to a foyer. Some councils will have a staff member or somebody out. They'll have some chairs, and it'll be a little more, and everybody kind of sits. Yeah, if
Councilmember Edwards.
yeah, I just, I think I keep getting stuck on why are we even having this conversation? I mean, legitimately, we're interviewing someone for a mayor position. If we can't trust them to sit out in the lobby for 10 minutes, we've got a bigger problem. I think that the transparency issue is really important. And so I absolutely want to make that available to our citizens. If it really is a concern, then let's just post it an hour later. But realistically, I mean, how far micromanaging are we going to do here? These are adults that are applying for the position of a mayor.
Yeah, no, I will for sure record it, and it will for sure be.
Yeah,
posted.
so
Have we gone through this before? Since we've changed to live streaming, have we had this process? We have had this process, and it's always been live streamed in front of.
Well, never from mayor, correct?
No,
No, for council vacancies.
I guess what this reminds me of is the old debate with ballot counting and it being shared as it went and discouraging people from voting and all that. And so the reason it was changed is like, we don't want this to influence that. And if I understand correctly, that's where Councilmember Donahue's coming from, is if you're one of the first to go, then you have no one else's to pull from, like what were other people saying? But if you're the last to be interviewed and you just happen to, be listening to it on your earbud, looking for that edge if you want that position, then sure, listening discreetly, that's going to give you a little bit of an edge. And I don't know if someone would be doing that or not, but I understand what he's saying is we want to make sure it's a level playing field, meaning there's no opportunity for other candidates to listen to the prior answers, because it's not like a town hall where they're in a conversation. So I understand the intent behind it.
I'll
And-
just,
Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
I'll just say, yeah, it seems like there's no extra effort to not live stream it, right? So yeah, if you can avoid any opportunity for someone to get an unfair advantage, you simply just make it available later. It's an hour after it's done. I mean, if we had 11 candidates, right? 11 times 15 is multiple hours. I doubt someone's going to be here for the full 3 hours waiting if they're candidate number 11. Who knows where they are and what they're doing? It just seems so simple to not live stream it. It still becomes available to everybody. Everybody has access. It's just an hour later. I don't see how that impacts anybody negatively.
Exactly. Very low cost for potential. Tasha, as you mentioned, huge benefit. I mean, you'd like to think that you could trust anyone who's running for the position of mayor, but if we can't, I'd rather know about that sooner rather than later. And this is an easy way to do that.
I agree. Thank you, Ryan.
I just quickly, I'm supportive of that. I guess I would echo, though, Councilwoman Edwards' comment. We can't manage all the variables and we don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage. For some people, hearing other answers could lock them into to answering in a different way than they were planning to. And that answer could be worse than the original answer. Like, I don't think that's a clear assumption, and I don't want to micromanage the process any more than, what we've done. I think I'm supportive of making it an hour later, but I think we're all grownups and we're interviewing grownups and we have a good process in front of us. So I say that we move forward.
So do I have a majority to not live stream?
I'm in favor of not live streaming. So
Okay,
Same.
Not live streaming.
I'm in favor of not live streaming.
okay. So I do have a consensus. So Greg, does that need to be reflected in the council procedures tonight? Or can we make a decision on that now in this meeting for this process this year? And then do we need to add it or can we add it later? Yeah, I don't think we need to add it. Okay. I'd hate to wordsmith that tonight.
Totally. I
Yeah.
agree.
Okay,
Okay.
They've given you that direction and.
okay.
So do we have to vote on the changes?
We do,
Yeah, so
we do
reverting
need
back to the
action.
ones that I reviewed in the staff report. If we could get a motion on that, that'd be great.
Can I ask,
before, since we got consensus on other topics, can we get consensus on the 16.1 section?
On public records.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was in favor of leaving the original language. If, can you take a quick poll? on
I
that?
guess I feel like that's different because that's something that's being, that's part of the action that we're looking to vote on. That's not
In addition.
an addition.
Right.
So it would be
So I
an
think-
amendment to the motion.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would
Yep.
like to make that.
Well,
amendment.
we got to have a motion first.
Okay.
If we can get a motion on the floor to adopt the changes, then you can make an amendment.
Yes.
can I ask one quick question before, just to make sure I understand, and it's not this specific scenario, but to make sure I understand. In 22.1, it says pursuant to state law, a vacancy shall be filled only until the next regular municipal election. So in this very specific instance, the next municipal election is in a year and a half.
Right.
Let's just say, as in theory, if Mayor Gailey had done this 2 years ago, where he still had 3.5 years left of his term.
Mhm.
So whoever we appointed does not fill the remainder of that person's term. They only go until the next municipal election.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So,
Yep. You get-
Okay.
So it'd be
You
the
get
next
people
cycle.
elected to fill
Yeah.
the unexpired term, and sometimes you get people elected to both fill the unexpired term and to be the new.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
so this is not filling this is as correct, that whenever we appoint someone, it's until the next election, not to fill that spot's completed existing term.
So to clarify,
yeah.
if the mayor wasn't up for election in this
Right.
next cycle, we would elect a new mayor in the next cycle anyway.
Even if he wasn't up, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because this language suggests that if he wasn't up, you would elect somebody. They would,
Because technically the next general election would be this year. So,
Yeah.
and we're
But not-
talking about next year. I think it's the rest of the unexpired term.
and that's not exactly that's not how I read this language.
Okay.
You're reading it, to clarify, you're reading it as the next municipal election being this November, there's a municipal election, but
Or even
Next
in a year
year.
and a half when half of us are up for election, right? If
But it's-
if it wasn't the mayor's cycle, would that election still happen?
Let me get some guidance from the elections office, of the county, and I will get back to you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's the unexpired term. But I want to check on that. But they also have their deadlines as to when they need to have everything on their ballot ahead of time. So it may be a timing issue.
Yeah, I guess it just,
Yeah.
if it is, essentially, if it is whenever that position would have been up for election anyways, we should put some sort of language to reflect that this person will be appointed to fill the remainder of the existing term, and the person will be up, that position will be up for a vote per the standard schedule, cadence, whatever language is appropriate.
I'll get back to you guys on that.
That's how I read the remainder of that, where it says until the next municipal election, where the person elected will serve the remainder of the unexpired term. That's how I would read it, that it would be that through 27, where the mayoral position would have been up.
But if the mayor wasn't up until 29, that's what
Right,
I'm
I would
asking.
take it as unexpired term being the 29. The unexpired term of the
Mhm.
person being elected, we're voting for someone to fill in that vacancy.
Well, the elected or appointed, because we're not electing somebody, we're appointing somebody. So if it said wherein the person appointed will serve the remainder of the unexpired term, then I get that we're doing here. But elected suggests at the next municipal election, someone's going to get elected.
Yes.
And then the remainder of that term could be just 1.5 months until, or it could be 2 years and 1.5 months, depending on
Yeah.
the cycle. So again,
Those scenarios
Yeah,
are possible.
I will get guidance tomorrow and let you know.
That's fair.
Okay, if we're ready, I'd like to make a motion to approve the council procedures adopted today, May 12th, 2026.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to just go on record that I agree with Councilmember Araya, sorry. That the language we had was sufficient enough. But I'm not going to hold up the.
I would like to make an amendment to revert section 16(1) to its original and not make the changes to that particular section.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
So we have an amendment to the motion and a second regarding section 16(1). Any discussion specifically about that amendment?
Yes, I will just note that I am in my car. I do not have a copy of the language in front of me, so I will abstain from voting on this amendment.
Thank you, Councilman Donahue. Any further discussion?
I just would like to again reiterate that this isn't about anyone sitting up here today. This is something that we're changing for future council members that are, it's a huge, I'm sure anyone who's ever sat up here, it's a huge, huge learning curve. And I think making it clear is important. And I just want to remind everyone, this isn't a reflection on anyone sitting here and what we feel is necessary. What do we feel for the future possible council members? You know, what information is there going through this would be important.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, we will vote on the amendment to the motion. All those in favor of maintaining the original language in section 16.1, please say aye. Actually, could I request a roll call vote?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
This will be a random. Councilmember Donahue.
Abstain.
Oh, correct. Okay. Councilmember Jorstad.
No.
Councilmember Packard.
No.
Councilmember Edwards.
No.
Councilmember Shipman.
No.
Councilmember McManus.
Yes.
And Councilmember Araya.
Yes.
So it fails.
Thank you. So the amendment fails. So we'll go back to the regular motion, which was made to pass to accept the changes in the council procedures. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Why don't we do a roll call vote again, please? Thank you.
Councilmember Araya.
Yes.
Councilmember Donahue.
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards.
Aye.
Councilmember Packard.
Yes.
Councilmember McManus.
Aye.
Councilmember Shipman.
Aye.
And Councilmember Jorstad.
Aye.
Passed.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Thank you, Clerk Chellan. Moving on to action item B, Parks Vehicle Replacement, Director Garceau.
Being a ventriloquist was never a good skill of mine, so I now have a mic. Thank you. Council, Sarah Garceau, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here to discuss the Parks Vehicle Replacement Program. And I've asked Aaron Halverson, Director Halverson with Public Works, to co-present as he's in charge of the city's fleet program. So I'll hand this over to Director Halverson to talk about the fleet program overview. And then I'll come back to talk about our parks fleet and what we have for our staff. The replacement of Public Works 22, PW 22, that was the vehicle that was crashed on April 22nd. For the record, no injuries. The employee was fine, but that vehicle likely will be deemed a total loss. Airbags went off. We're just waiting for that final paperwork from the insurance. Then we'll go over an updated quote that we did receive. The good news as a peek forward, originally we were suggested to hold a placeholder budget of $56,000, which comes down to $1,090 per month. And Enterprise was able to find a vehicle on a lot today available for $38,000, which brings that monthly price down to $790. So I'll show you that at the very end. And I'll turn it over to Director Halverson.
Okay, thank you, Director Garceau. For those of you in the audience, my name's Aaron Halverson. I'm the Public Works Director, and I'm pleased to be here, Mayor and Council. I have two slides. I'll go pretty quickly, and it really is an overview of the fleet program, Cliff Notes version. So Public Works manages the city's fleet except for police vehicles. They manage their own vehicles. What does that mean? It means we procure them, we maintain them, we have parts inventory, we plan preventative maintenance, we track it, we do all of the things. We also facilitate painting of plow blades, which is, there's one. It's not done yet. That one is done, but it's not done in the picture yet. So anyway, it's very cool. There are 93 vehicles / equipment in the fleet. So it's not a small task. We have one mechanic. He's very busy and we appreciate him very much. There are 41 light duty vehicles. Okay, so when I say light duty, it's a vehicle you could buy off of a lot. So F-350, F-450 down. So that's a light duty vehicle in the picture. There are 20 leased and 21 city-owned light duty vehicles, and the average year is 2022 for those vehicles. So we have a fairly new fleet. That was not always the case. On to the next slide, Sarah. Please. Okay. In November 2022, we had 88 pieces of equipment. The average age was 13 years old, which is almost old enough to drive. So anyway, the budget was not keeping pace with replacement needs. So we had an aging fleet and we couldn't afford to maintain it and keep it up to date, which means that, I'll give you an example. In 2022, we were out plowing streets and we got down to one plow because they all broke down for a variety of reasons. And the school district was gracious enough to lend us one plow and we had two plows, which is not to the level of service we want. We have many more plows now. So in 2022, we selected Enterprise Fleet to help us fix this problem through a leasing program. So the goal was to get the fleet to 5 to 7 years old. It's under that now, generally on average, although we have some older vehicles still. We can buy at government pricing, which is great, or bulk pricing. So we can buy one half-ton vehicle out of the 400 that they bought, and we get the 400 vehicle rate. So that can be positive. They take care of title, registration, and delivery, and then they help us sell it at the end of its life with us, which is also helpful. Otherwise, we send it to auction, and it's a lot less competitive. The fleet details, the equity lease details, I won't dive into it very much, but there's no limit on usage. We have the option to purchase the vehicle at the end of the lease. I can talk more about that later if you're interested. I'm happy to come back. And then the equity in the vehicle is earned with payments. And that equity is transferred to the city when they sell it and buy a new vehicle, or if we decide to keep the vehicle long-term. The image is not is a piece of equipment. It's not, we can't drive that. It's a crack sealer, and we use that to seal the cracks in pavement so that the pavement doesn't turn into gravel, but it's a neat photo. Okay. Any questions for me? Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Halverson. The Parks Fleet. This is all of the vehicles that are assigned to the Parks Department. You can see that I've crossed off PW 22 just to show you that it is no longer in service. The last update from insurance on Thursday was we were still waiting a decision on that one specifically. But as I mentioned, airbags went off, not in a condition to go back out on the road and have city employees use that for service. We have a variety of owned and leased vehicles. As you can see, they range from light duty pickups such as the Ford Mavericks. Those Ford Mavericks are primarily used by the admin team, as well as the Parks Field Supervisor, as they spend a fair amount of time inside in the office as well. Everything else out in the field are F-150s or 1500s and larger. We have one specialty vehicle that is noted on here as the NRR, and I have a photo of that here on the next page. It's a very large landscaping truck. So as you can imagine, this is not a daily driver. It's not something we take when we do park rounds or maintenance. It's when we are buying in bulk. So if that's dirt or plants or moving material in or out of a park, so playground bark chips or landscaping chips, those sort of things. That one vehicle for admin, that Maverick, is actually shared by 5 different staff. So as you can imagine, we have overlapping meetings and needs at places like the mill, which we rent. We have various locations where we store recreation items, such as Eagle Ridge has a storage unit, as well as a office space that used to be occupied by a city staff member. It's now turned into a recreation storage facility. So we're often running back and forth as we take care of recreational programming, special events, and various meetings and rentals. We have the one vehicle that I mentioned, the NRR, which is that special vehicle use. That leaves 9 vehicles to be used by parks operations and all of the field needs. We have 8 full-time staff. That's the 1 supervisor, the 1 lead, and the 6 maintenance workers. 4 seasonal staff, which come in over 5 or 6 months of the summer. To share those 9 vehicles. And then, of course, we have admin who are also trying to borrow those vehicles whenever we need to go in different directions. Schedules over summer vary, starting at 6 a.m. and ending at 8 p.m., sometimes a little later than 8 p.m. And this is 7 days a week. Up to 10 staff are on a single day. As we overlap schedules, telling you a little bit about Public Works 22, that was the oldest vehicle in the parks fleet. We had requested this as a replacement vehicle in the fiscal year 26 budget, the one that we're in right now. But actually no vehicles were approved in this last budget for replacement, as we were trying to be mindful of budget and decisions had to be made. In prior years, there always had, since the enterprise shift, had been at least 1 to 3 or more replaced. We are requesting to replace this vehicle, of course, to continue normal operations. We're just needing a light duty truck, a Ram 1500, F-150 or something similar. The Parks Department really tries to get a crew cab, which is that full-size crew cab. This allows us to say, put any sensitive storage items inside, things that can't get wet, like paper towels, toilet paper. We've also had some of our cleaning products freeze during the winter months. And so things like that we have to consider. We try to get regular size beds, as this is easier for maneuvering in parking lots, but still allow for trash bags and tools to be thrown in the back. Two-wheel drive is requested for this vehicle because it is better on fuel price, and any towing needs are just very basic, light duty, not a lot of weight. That's why the tow hitch is requested. We do aftermarket now put backup cameras on all of our vehicles. Helps to make sure there's no pedestrians in the parks as they're backing up, as well as helps them while hitching any vehicles to prevent any mishaps there. Then upfitting, we would require some toolboxes in the back for tools, of course, and a headache rack to prevent the glass from being broken as we're moving things in and out of that vehicle. That's the standard upfitting that we have for the park vehicles. This is the page where in the staff report, I had used all of the numbers suggested by Enterprise on our first conversation. That's on the left-hand side. As mentioned, we received an Enterprise quote just last week. I believe it came in on Thursday, if my memory is correct. That is a F-150. It's available on a lot today. Through the Enterprise agreement, it would be able to be purchased for the price of $38,000. After you add the title, licensing, delivery, that monthly payment comes out to $790. We do have $3,500 of upfitting that would hit in the first year. With those numbers and looking that we are mid-May, I would be requesting year one, $9,000, $9,040 in order to purchase and upfit that vehicle. Additional years, this would be payments all the way through 60 months, which is the term of the 5-year lease, would be $9,480 required in the next budget years. These prices, of course, are an estimate, and the vehicle is only available while it's on the lot. I did try to touch base with Enterprise to see if this specific vehicle was still available today. With all my meetings, I asked too late in the day. They don't have an answer, but reasonably sure if this specific one isn't, we could keep looking and find something very similar as this updated quote, since that is the rate today. That is the end of the presentation. Kept it short, hopefully enough information. Happy to take questions. Really, council has a decision, some discussion to have. There's a few different options. You can decide to replace PW22. We would recommend we continue with the Enterprise lease as it is the current system that we have. But if there's any concern over that Enterprise lease system, Director Halverson can answer questions today. He can also bring this back in a detailed presentation to dive into it another time. If it was a purchase, I have the purchase price here available to look at. The other decision is just to hold off. I understand you have tough budget decisions. If it is held off, we would bring that back in the next fiscal year budget request, 27. Operations would be impacted, but there are things that we could work out in our department, as we always do.
Thank you, Director Garceau. Thanks, Director Halverson. Appreciate the information. Any questions for staff?
Can I get a bottom line for what the city will spend in the 60-month lease compared to what the city will spend if we purchase the vehicle?
I will do that and get right back to you.
Any other questions?
I don't want to be a Scrooge. I guess I need you maybe to enlighten me, right? You have 9 full-time staff and then there were 11 vehicles. I know you have summer staff, seasonal staff. I'm struggling with why every employee needs a vehicle. I'm assuming you're going out in groups. I get the value of having it. I'm struggling with the need. And then the second question is, yeah, we had a Ranger, which was smaller. Can we replace that with another Maverick or another Ford Ranger? Ultimately, I'm looking at the cost. I mean, $56,000, when I first saw that, I was really struggling with that. So those are just some of my comments more than questions.
Absolutely. The Mavericks have a very small truck bed on them. It does
Mhm.
not allow us to put many trash bags in, as you could imagine. So with that, it really doesn't meet the need for trash rounds. The Mavericks that we do have, one is with admin and one is with the supervisor. It's uncommon for the park supervisor to pull trash bags. If he does, it's usually 1 or 2 bags. We also like to make sure that we have proper tools and storage areas for all of the trash bags, gloves, cleaners, as well as basic tools so that we're minimizing trips to and from parks. So I would strongly say that a Maverick is too small for park grounds due to that. F-150 would be our desire to ensure that the needs of the department are met, but I do appreciate the thought there.
I'm going to interrupt really quick. I noticed that we are at 8:00 and we are going to need a motion to extend the meeting. Great news for all the students here that are observing the meeting. You get to observe an extra long council meeting tonight. We have one additional action item after this. We have a brief discussion item. We have council business and we have an executive session that will take at minimum 15 minutes. I would like to suggest a motion to extend the meeting to 8:25, but I am open to suggestions.
I would make a motion to extend the meeting to 8:30, but go ahead and adjourn it if we get done prior to that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Council President,
Any opposed? Thank you. Meeting is extended until 8:30.
Council President, could I
Oh.
motion that we forego council business, given the time constraints in the executive session that I expect will take some time?
I appreciate that feedback. We will make that decision when we get to that item on the agenda.
Thank you. Picking back up, the last question was in regards to having 9 vehicles and 8 full-time staff to use those 9 vehicles. Noted, and I understand how that is a valid question. Our 8 full-time staff in the winter, this is a great number of vehicles. It leaves us with the 1 extra vehicle to rotate to admin needs, as well as rotating whenever maintenance needs need to be done. Vehicles need their oil change, their tires. Other times when engine lights come on, lights need to be changed. We often are leaving them with the mechanic for that. A good example of maintenance need is all of the newer Ford vehicles that are on the enterprise lease all just went through a round of recalls through the manufacturer. And so that required each vehicle to be taken out of service for at least 1 day, if not 2 or 3. And so those need to be transported to the dealership. They need to make the repair and then we pick it up and transport it back. So those unexpected outages are something to consider. When we are at full-time staff, so in the summer, when you add the 8 plus the 4 seasonal, that is 12 to share vehicles. As I said, with staffing, we typically don't breach more than 10 people on a single day. So could those people double up? Yes, often, especially the seasonals are the ones that are doubling up. For the full times, absolutely, we could put 2 people in a car, but it will impact operations. We tend to conquer and divide. So to split up rounds in the morning, we have 2 different people going in different directions to hit as many parks as possible. If there's a day where we have a project where all hands are on deck, often 4 different people are doing rounds to split those duties. And when you combine that, you have the same travel time being doubled up on. You have to consider things like store runs. If we're in the middle of a project and we need to go to the store to get a specific irrigation part, both employees may go do that. We would have a control where we're asking staff not to double up and both go to the store. But then that leaves them there without the truck. The truck has all of the tools and the supplies, the first aid kit. These are things that can be overcome, but it's not ideal for the service level that was expected of this department and we've put in place. Service levels can absolutely be changed, but it is something to note. Having 9 vehicles for our current staff allows us to best utilize employee staff time, which is one of the most expensive things for the department, of course. But I understand that, yes, the decision could be made for us to make do with the vehicles that we have and remove the one from the fleet.
Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Additional questions?
Sarah, I have a question. If the current vehicle or the old vehicle is being totaled, I'm assuming there will be an insurance payout. I guess I'd like some clarification on why we're not trying to use that money to look for a comparable replacement vehicle on the used market, and why we're instead considering, I think the number I saw in the packet was a 2025 vehicle that I'm assuming costs significantly more.
Great question. As mentioned, this was the oldest vehicle in our fleet. It was a 1997 Ranger. It's a gem of a thing, would be a great first vehicle for many of the individuals in this audience. However, at this time, it is no longer drivable. This vehicle, a similar one was sold in 2014 and it brought in 3,100 at auction. Auctions are unpredictable. Numbers can go up and down. I'm told through our insurance that $2,500 is the maximum that we could receive by this vehicle being totaled. So that's what we're waiting to hear back from is the insurance agency. Worst case scenario, $0. Best case scenario, $2,500 to help offset these costs. Getting back to Councilmember Shipman's question, thank you for that. When I take $790 per month and 2 cents times it by 60 months, add the $800 for titling, registration, delivery, add my $3,500 that we need to upfit this vehicle for operations, I get a grand total of $51,701.20. Whereas you can see on here that cash price today would be your $38,312, $800, and $3,500. So it comes out to about a $10,000 difference for the financing.
I will just say too, as part of the council who made the decision in 2022 to transition over to enterprise, it was sort of a no-brainer in my recollection. It was more efficient. It provided staff vehicles that were in better shape. It was cost effective. And so I think that continuing on with using enterprise to secure our fleet cheaper than we could do it ourselves and to keep it maintained, in my opinion, is a good direction to continue moving in.
I guess that kind of goes back to my question though, Sarah. It's even if we only get $2,500 from the insurance company, whatever delta we have to make up in our budget to acquire another similar vehicle, like yes, it's older and it's not as glamorous or as fancy as a new one, but I'm assuming whatever we end up paying for that, the difference between, that and a 2025 vehicle, that covers a lot of maintenance before I think we even break even or reach the same cost. So I guess, again, I'm kind of curious why we're not looking more at the used market instead of trying to replace this with, a brand new truck.
Absolutely. So to correct my prior statement, it's a difference of $9,800 or $9,089 between the purchase and lease. The purchasing of vehicles outright when they're new, that becomes a cash flow problem when you're trying to replace so many vehicles at once. As you can see in my slide, we still have aging vehicles and we're trying to get the age of maintenance between the 5 and 7 year range, which Director Halverson could speak more to. After we start getting older, a vehicle older than 7 years, the maintenance needs start increasing. And those unknown maintenance costs are really what can hit a budget hard. They can overwork our in-house mechanic. And you have downtime for the field as well. The best way to optimize a government fleet is to operate between a 5 to 7 year life. But of course, we can dive further into that. To directly answer your question is why aren't we looking at the used market? I know that we cannot purchase a vehicle for $2,500. That wouldn't be enough, especially when we factor in the cost for the title registration and tax on the purchase. However, could you approve a budget of $20,000 or $25,000 and have us look at used vehicles? We absolutely could take that route if that is your decision.
Hey, sir, the slide that shows the age of the vehicles current.
Absolutely. There you go.
So it looks like the oldest one is the 2015. That's the oldest fleet. So my question would be, can we look at two things? One, can we look at Public Works fleet and see if they have a truck that's aging out that may be a good swap over? Like, are we gonna have this conversation next year when we need 2 for Public Works that need to be replaced? Can we look at that since Parks is generally not carrying heavy equipment, not towing, the kind of stuff that Public Works does? Can we look at maybe getting a hand-me-down from Public Works for Parks, for lack of a better word, and then looking at a new vehicle for public works replacement. Just trying to estimate out, looking forward, not, taking in that data to see if we have a vehicle that's on the cusp in public works that might suffice for a couple of years for Parks and Rec to get us through this. Number one. The other thing I would ask is, in the enterprise rental program or fleet program, do they provide a rental vehicle when there's a recall or there needs to be some sort of repair work done on that vehicle?
My understanding is with our current contract, because we're not utilizing them for maintenance specifically, that no rental vehicle is provided. The other question about Public Works fleet. Public Works fleet is also actively trying to replace all of their older vehicles. And so if one comes over to us, we would still need a replacement and or they would be getting the replacement. I would love to make sure that Parks just doesn't end up with a stacked older vehicle list in the future as we're trying to work through some of our older vehicles still at this time. But temporarily, would there be something available? Director Halverson did offer up one vehicle that they do have available, which is underutilized. The unfortunate thing about this vehicle is it does not meet the parks need. It's a short cab, so it only has the 2 seats in it. It doesn't have any in-cab storage. It does not have toolboxes on the outside. Could that be solved? Yes, it could, but you're upfitting new toolboxes on it. And then it has a large crane on the back. This is more of a flatbed style, not a bed with raised sides. And so we would not be able to use it for putting any items on the back that wouldn't be properly strapped down.
Gotcha. You can understand why I'm asking that question.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, good.
Ask away. That's why we're
Thank you. I
here.
appreciate it.
Could you put the slide back up that shows the decisions to be made? Pretty please. Thank you.
So what
think it
what
was-
are we looking for council
The next,
tonight?
the next slide that shows the,
Oh, I apologize. My brain stopped.
There we go.
Said
Thank you.
pretty please, because I was like, that was so correct.
So I would make a motion that we hold off on replacing PW 22, that we wait to look at this budget impact in combination with a number of other things as part of fiscal year 27. We've had conversations in the last couple weeks around pay for certain positions, things like that. I think there's a lot that we need to look at collectively, and I'm afraid to do any one of these in isolation. I understand operations will be impacted, but I still think it's manageable. I'd like to look at it collectively rather than by itself.
so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
We're entering park season. Lake Stevens is known for its parks. People come from all around, not just people that live here. People come all around from our parks. Personally, I'm very proud of Lake Stevens Parks and the job our Parks Department does. How will this affect service? I think it will be yet to be seen, but I think that a newer vehicle is going to have the longevity. Older vehicles, not only is there more maintenance, you've got the possibility of breaking down. All of those type of things. I certainly understand budget constraints and I've been pretty vocal about the budget. But I think there are some things we need to prioritize and we're entering park season here. I don't know about you guys. I had a hard time finding a place to park tonight because there were so many people at the park. So I would be in favor of replacing it and I would be in favor of purchasing and saving that $9,000 now. And so that we're giving our Parks Department what they need to do the job that is expected of our citizens.
Thank you. Other discussion?
Yeah, I would think council made the decision not to have any replacement vehicles in the budget. We are talking about less than 6 months roughly, once we get this decided on a new budget, which we could actually plan for the replacement of this vehicle. So just want to keep that in mind as we're trying to keep things down. A lot of ask for increase in budget, not a lot of ask for bringing a lot of cut in the budget, right? Or reducing the spending expenditures or reallocating cash from one thing to the other. So I guess there's two things. One, if we want a new vehicle, I would look to see if there's anywhere we could squeeze it out of current budget, Sarah. And if not, then we'd have to make that hard decision on whether we want to wait to replace it until 2027.
My concern is level of service, and I agree with Councilmember Shipman that we are entering our park season. We seem to already be a little constrained with, being able to maintain what we have already, and I would be hard pressed to put the Parks Department in a situation to where they are even more tied hands. And so I think I would be in favor. This is more of an emergency replacement. This isn't like we're just choosing to replace a vehicle. Considering that this is the oldest vehicle in the fleet, I think that it makes sense to replace it and maintain our level of service that we have in our parks. I would probably go with Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion of the lease option, which is what the council had decided previously. That would be my input.
Thank you. Councilwoman Edwards, other discussion? I'll weigh in and say, I feel like holding off is sort of kicking the can down the road. I think that vehicles are not going to get cheaper between now and next year. And I would agree that this feels like an emergency decision versus a budgeted decision. And council makes decisions all the time about, emergency things that come up that where money needs to be spent. I also really worry about level of service and entering park season. So I am not going to be voting in favor of holding off on replacing.
And as our presenter said today, your budget is a live document. And I think this is the perfect example of it being a live document.
I guess my concluding comment is I wouldn't call this an emergency. I would say an accident happened, right? It was an unexpected situation. I don't deem this as if we don't have this vehicle that the city's in emergency mode and we can't operate. It's a reduction in service. It's not all of a sudden everything breaks. So I'm okay with a limited reduction. I just don't classify it as an emergency.
Maybe I should clarify, it's more unexpected, I think, than an emergent.
Well, I guess, everybody in our constituents are all tightening their belts. Just about every household in town's tightening their belts. And at some point, we have to learn how to do that as well.
I would just add too that I agree with Councilmember Jorstad. Vehicles typically do not get cheaper. However, I believe there's additional discussion to be had about some potentially cheaper options. And so with that, I would call for the question.
Call for the question. The motion is to hold off on replacing PW 22. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Say nay.
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 Yes.
And can I get clarification? What exactly is the motion?
To hold off on
To
replacing,
hold off. Okay.
yes.
Okay, so the names were Councilmember Edwards, Jorstad, and Ryan, which would make.
And Shipman.
So it is.
Thank you. So the motion fails.
I would
Is-
like, can I make the next
Please.
motion?
Mhm.
I would like to make a motion on replacing PW 22 with the purchase of a new vehicle to save money in the long run, the $9,000.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Not hearing a second, the motion fails to move forward.
I'll consequently make a motion that we replace by leasing the vehicle. That seems to be, well, it may not be the only remaining option. It's the only one left on the chart, but there may be other options.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to replace PW 22 with the lease option. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I would be interested to know why over a 5-year period, you want to spend $9,000 more.
I don't think we have the 50K sitting around right now, so I'm okay to lighten that. I think when you also look at the power of cash, right, we could invest 40K and come up with that $9,000 over 6 years as well. So it's not a big enough number to me to do it that way.
Can we clarify what that lease would be? I think our agenda was different than the latest one you presented. So what would be the maximum? The agenda said 60,000. Do we have a new maximum for the lease now?
The lease for this year, I've put in 6 months. It's going to be about 6.5 months, but based on the 6 month, that's $9,040.12 for this year. Additional years after that would be $9,480.24 through the 60 months. Are you looking for the total grant price of
I
that?
think you mentioned the 51,700, so $52,000, and the maximum in the packet was 60,000. I guess I just want to make sure that we were clear on that maximum amount that you would have for that leasing. If this particular vehicle is not available, then you know what you're looking for. Is that?
It's a fair point because I don't want it to be an open budget or an open checkbook for the purchase of a leased vehicle. So
Well, I think it was clear in the written one. I think an updated maximum would be.
So for leasing, we would be looking at a supplemental budget for this year.
Okay.
And then the subsequent years on 2027, 2028, as part of budget, we'll be bringing forward the cost of the lease program. So
Okay.
that'll automatically build in the future years. So for this year, oh, I'm so sorry, it just scrolled. I'm going in the wrong direction. For this year, this vehicle would be the 9,040. So if you want to say maybe not to exceed 9,500 in order to round that off, if you're comfortable with that number.
I would say $10,000. I guess I mean, yeah. That doesn't make a difference to me. 95 or 10,000, I think. Yeah, you had 11,000 in here, so it feels like.
Councilman
If-
Donnie.
Yeah, if I may, I'm still hearing a lot of active discussion and questions, which is great. However, I'm looking at our time, and it feels to me like maybe this needs to come back in just a week. I don't think the parks are going to burn down then, and where we can really dig into this, because that seems to be what we're still doing, and then we can, move forward tonight and get some of our other items done. That would be my suggestion.
We have a motion on the floor with a second, so we're in discussion of that motion. So we would need to vote on the motion and then make that decision. So shall we call for the vote? Yeah,
Call
okay.
for the vote.
Yep, motion on the floor is to move forward with the lease option. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
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 Oh, sorry.
Please. Okay, and now.
Okay, motion fails to pass. Oh.
What was your vote?
Sorry, was that directed at me?
Yes, what was your vote? for
I was nay.
So at this point, all three options presented by staff have been voted down. And so
Personally, I would recommend if staff is open to bringing it back in a week or two, and council can submit questions to Sarah in the interim, and then perhaps we can, pick something to go forward with, moving forward from a more informed place. I don't think we're gonna get there tonight.
And staff has the content of our discussion, so kind of know what the concerns are and what some of the questions are. So we look forward to seeing this on a future agenda item.
Thank you. And
Thank
my email and phone is open for any additional questions to come in. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you for your patience.
Moving forward to our next action item C, the 91st Avenue Southeast Multi-Use Path Phase 2 Construction Contract Award. I'll turn it over to Eric Mangold.
Good evening, council. My name is Eric Mangold. I'm the acting interim city engineer and capital projects manager for the city. What I'm bringing to you tonight is just the authorization to award the contract to SRV for the 91st multi-use path. To give you a quick synopsis, we've been working on this project for about 6 months, which is pretty amazing that we were able to get it done this quick. But we went out to bid. The original engineer's estimate for this project was $2.4 to $2.6 million. Our bids came in pretty competitive. The low bid was $1.876 million. And so we're getting a pretty substantial savings by a contractor that is known to do good work and be very efficient with the way they do stuff. As you can see in our revenues, the budget for this project came from a transportation benefit program funds, stormwater capital funds, But we were also able to get a TIB, which is the Transportation Improvement Board grant, for $800,000, and also a WashDOT Safe Routes to School grant. So our budget for the whole project actually was anticipated to be $2.9 million. And as you see in the other half of this, our planned expenditures, our design contract was $475,000, and then our construction is 1.876. So our total is $2.3 million. And actually our consultant for design was actually able to be way more efficient on their design as well. So we still have budget left in the contract there. So this will be a pretty considerable savings from what we had projected to be. So tonight, not tonight, I should say, earlier in May, we opened the bids for this project. And we had 4 bids. The low bid came in as the number that we told you. And now we're just asking council to authorize the mayor pro tem to sign the contract with SRV Construction. And so if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Can I add something really quickly, and I'll be fast?
Please.
I want to point out that the TBP funds that the voters approved were the first funds in. And we're seeing this over and over again, where other funds are coming into these projects, and we expect to see that. So this is a great success for the community, and I just want to put that out.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Can you clarify, is it on just the east side of the road? Is the sidewalk going on both sides of the road?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is actually what we have now been told is deemed a side path. Anytime we do a multi-use path that's adjacent to a roadway, it is called a side path now. The side paths are typically 12 feet wide. So we're going to put all of the real estate for walking on the left side, or I guess the east side of the road. Yeah, as you said. So this will continue. The original phase 1 was a 10-foot wide trail. That goes from Marketplace to 4th Street. That was a 10-foot wide trail. This one will continue past. We'll skip this section of sidewalk that's already through the schools, and then when there's no sidewalk now, we'll have that 12-foot wide path there. And we will also be putting a bike lane on the west side of the road.
What's the mechanism though for a child coming out of, say, 16th Place that wants to get across the street? Will there be crosswalks at each of those locations?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we will be improving all the ADA ramps that are there, adding crosswalks, enhanced crosswalks for all the crossings that are there. We also are incorporating some traffic calming measures, which looks like speed cushions. They're kind of the big, long, wider speed bumps that people are used to seeing. You're able to drive over them at a 25-mile-an-hour speed and not have damage to your axles or your car, but they do cause you to slow down. And so this is to really improve the traffic safety around that area, especially because this road holds 3 schools on it. We've really worked on implementing the traffic calming measures in there. We also will be dropping the speed limit to 25 on 91st.
Any further questions related to requesting that this contract be signed and move forward?
I move that we authorize the mayor pro tem to sign the contract.
Second the motion?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to the rest of the agenda, we have council agenda review, which Clerk Chellan has stated that we can postpone that and it might come up in some capacity in our executive session. And then we had a question by Councilman Donahue, or a suggestion to skip council business tonight. So would love council's input on that recommendation.
I will go ahead and make a motion so we can discuss it. I move that we forego council business tonight.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I just have one item that I think is important for the body, that's all, but I can email that to the clerks and the clerks can email that out. Let's do it that way.
I'm okay with that, but I really wanted to tell everyone how great it was to go to DC and to work so hard for our funds, but.
So
it's okay.
there are differing opinions. Council has things they want to talk about.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
So we foregoing council business and discussion item for the council agenda review, right?
Oh, yes.
Both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of not having discussion item or council business, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are skipping 9 and 10, which will move us into executive session, which is confidential session of the council. Clerk Chellen?
Yes.
Mhm.
So we're gonna need everybody to leave the room. This is a confidential session per RCW 423110. We'll be discussing and they will discuss and evaluating the qualifications for candidate for elective office.
We need to do that before.
There may be action.
And we need to extend the meeting before
Yes.
we start that.
I say 20 minutes for
Great.
exec session.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to get a?
We do need to extend our council session. I would like to make a motion that we extend our council meeting to 8:50.
Second.
8 what?
We have a motion and a second to extend to 8:50. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Extended to 8:50.
50? Oh, 50.
5-0.
8:50.
You want 50
20 minutes. No, 20
20
minutes
minutes, just
to
kidding.
8:50. Yep.
Yep.
Just getting ready.
It's getting like. We are back. I'm gonna check and see if you can show that. Okay. So we're back
Thank you.
at 8:15.
And we need to extend the meeting. And so I would entertain a motion by council to extend our time together.
I would like to extend the meeting to 9:05 or sooner.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting extended till 9:05.
So I need a little clarification on the process. So we're gonna each vote for people. It's not likely that everyone's going to be unanimous or we're going to have 6 unanimous. So are we simply taking those people with the most votes? Or are we going to do an initial vote
We-
and then?
We will be
majority?
making a motion to interview each person. That motion there'll be a motion and a second, and then there will be a vote. And
Greg,
if
Can we?
It's going to be majority on each person.
majority votes
Can
to,
I, since we're in open session, can I just read the names and they can raise their hand for each one?
Yes.
Then we don't have to go through a
I-
first
I
and a
think
second.
that's- You
great.
don't need to go through a formal motion.
Yeah.
So each of us need to think who our 6 should be.
Or just who you are
Who you
wanting to
want.
move forward to
Just
interview.
Who you're willing to.
You're gonna hear their name and you're going to decide this is a person I'd like to interview or not. That's,
Do we need three out of the 6 to move forward, or how is the tallying happening?
well, that's up to you, but.
That's what I'm asking.
A majority, probably a majority.
I think it would have to be 4 out of
4 out of
6.
the 6?
Yeah.
4 out of the 6. And once we hit 6 candidates, then we're technically not asking about anybody else.
Not
'cause we've already
necessarily.
met.
We're going to go through all
No,
of them.
that's not
Okay,
been decided.
So we're gonna just go through it. We might say 10 out of the 10, we have people who want to, and then, okay.
There you go.
That's what I'm asking is
Yes.
how it was gonna fall out.
Sure, sorry.
Making sure I get it sorted. Okay, should I take the first name? In no particular order, and then I'll have a raised hands.
Great.
So, Brian McManus.
Is that are we raising?
For
to-
yes.
To
move
say
forward.
yes?
Yes, to move
Okay.
forward. Okay, Ryan, Nathan, Sabina, all right, and Angie. So that's 4.
Yes.
So yes for Brian.
It's one.
Eric Fetterswalt, yes, hands. Just one for Eric. Sorry, I just gotta make sure I get this right. Gary Peter Sagan. There is 4. Kim, Angie, Ryan, and Sabina. Okay. Jared Irving. That's 4. Okay. Jessica Bilkovich. It's 3. Okay. And you're keeping count of this. Okay. Joseph Jensen. 2. Kurt Hilt. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Michael Insco. 1. Michael Labardo. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Labarto. 2. And Vilden Kirby. 2. Okay, so. Yeah, go ahead and read the 4s.
So the yeses we have are Kurt Hilt, Jared Irving, Gary Peters Hagen, Brian McManus, and Michael Insco. Oh, nope. Cross that last one off. Let me do it one more time here. So Kurt Hilt, Jared Irving, Gary Peters Hagen, and Brian McManus.
Was Jessica 3 out of 6?
Yep.
So does that mean we're only doing those 4, or we're gonna then say who else to add to the list to
No, just those ones.
just those 4?
Okay, so the next order of it, do you want me? I'm
Can,
sorry.
no, can I just ask a question that's not spelled out? And so maybe there isn't an answer, but I just want to put this on the floor.
Yeah.
We had a pool of 10 eligible folks. We chose 4 to interview. What is the, and you had mentioned there was a late one that could be brought up if there's another round of interviews. And so is there a mechanism to do a second round if
Absolutely.
we interview 4 and
Absolutely.
there isn't
And
consensus?
you're unsure, you're not ready, you want to go do more interviews, you want to do second interviews. I think the process is up to you.
All of those are
Yeah.
on the table. Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
say that out
No, that's a
loud
good
and make
question.
sure that that's the case.
You
Thank you.
just need to get it done in 90 days.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
which is July.
July
10th,
9th.
so,
July 10th.
yeah.
Okay.
So I do want to, so now we're not looking at interviewing all 10, so the time commitment isn't as much. So is there a preference to do this on a separate night? Where you can just focus on that, do the interviews, go into executive session, do your deliberations, come out, make an appointment if you're ready. Or do you want to try to tag this on to a council meeting? I can tell you our next couple meetings are pretty packed. It's going to make for a longer meeting.
I would like to propose that we do it on a separate night.
Agreed.
I agree.
Okay. Is June 3rd, Wednesday, June 3rd, an option?
I won't be in town.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Tell me your dates again, Kim.
Do my dates have to be on public record?
Oh, no, okay. You're not in town for the 3rd.
Good call.
No, you're right. How about the
catch.
26th of May? Are you here for the 26th of May?
27th, you mean? Or
20
is that, 27 is Wednesday, 26 is.
26th is already, we already have a meeting.
We already have a meeting, right? But are you here on that 27th? No, okay.
When I planned my vacation, I didn't realize we were doing this.
Now, and
Can
June,
I do it remotely?
yeah,
I guess I can do it
Sure.
remotely.
Do you want to do it remotely? I mean,
No.
we're at the stage where we can work around this.
I would rather do it in person. I will be back on
yeah.
that.
So,
21st.
but
I
the
will be
9th
back
is
on the 9th.
graduation. Counselor Packard, you're going to be gone.
Oh,
I will be at graduation.
Yeah,
Wednesday the 10th.
Wednesday, the 10th.
I can do the 10th.
Works for me.
It would give us just, ample opportunity to get all of our, all our ducks in a row, give them a lot of, forewarning, and it'd be that night. 10th. Does that work?
So we're
Right.
talking Wednesday, June 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this room?
Yeah, I think that works
Watch
for me.
in Sawyer's room. I didn't check it just to be sure. Okay, and so again, just to reiterate, we'll have an in-person option for people. We will record it. There will be no live streaming, and I will make sure that that's out to the public.
And is that the evening, I'm assuming, of June 10th?
Yeah, good question. Do you want 6 o'clock? Do you want earlier? 6 o'clock?
I need to go to work.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
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 6 is good.
6 PM on the 10th.
June 10th looks wide open for the Sawyer's room.
Okay, good. So we'll be in this room.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you. I will contact the other all of the candidates tomorrow.
All right.
I just want to make a comment. I understand how that process went out. I guess I'll just say that wasn't what I expected, and I'm not sure I'm fully satisfied with it. If the body is satisfied with where those 4 are, that's fine. I was assuming we'd talk about people a little bit more and talk pros and cons. And I just felt like that process was a little rushed during the closed session. I would have liked to talk more about people to discuss pros and cons, but
Well, you could talk again next week if you want. You have time.
if the consensus of the body is we're happy with those 4, then I will move forward with that because that's the consensus. We voted and then it just happened and I was expecting more dialogue and discussion and communicating on why we thought people would be good or less good.
I guess, are you worried that, I mean, speaking for yourself, you would have been able to persuade people to your list more, or because?
I don't know. That just kind of happened very fast for me when we're talking about picking the mayor and all of a sudden it was figuring out how we're going to do the voting and then the voting happened and that was very fast in my opinion.
It was a quorum. I mean, each person that we brought forward had a quorum.
A majority,
So
yeah.
I'm
There-
with
there-
I would say
We all had an opportunity.
I
to
see where
talk.
you're coming from and I agree that it was fast. I would say I'm satisfied if it moves us forward.
Any other comments, discussion?
It was a majority. I think that's fair, although neither of my top two candidates were picked, but I'm okay with going forward.
Okay. Okay,
And again, you can regroup after this round. You can,
that's true too.
You're saying after we interview these four, we can regroup? Is that what you're saying?
I mean,
I mean,
yeah,
If
I
we're
mean, it's up
not
to you to open it up to
satisfied.
more or
What I heard is, yeah, after that, if we can't reach a consensus or a majority, then we can open it back up and
you have
go.
time.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Comments, questions, motion to adjourn?
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?